Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With the latest WWE edition of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and we are here to break down everything that happened across Raw and SmackDown this week as WWE began a 3-week journey throughout Europe. They hit Barcelona, Spain, Brussels, Belgium on Friday and Monday, respectively. Next week, Bologna, Italy, Glasgow, Scotland, and then London, England, back-to-back to close the month of March. And of course, Getting Over will be with you the entire way. As usual, we have an absolute ton to discuss on this edition of the show. We're breaking down Raw, SmackDown, some of the biggest news in WWE, and looking ahead to WWE WrestleMania 41. Before we get to any of that, I need to remind you off the top that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So please, folks,
stop being marks for yourselves and go back to being a mark for me.
Head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. We told you our goal is to get to 500 reviews on Apple Podcasts by the start of WrestleMania 41. They actually updated our numbers. We are at 493. So 7 full written reviews away from hitting 500. We know how many of you listen to this program. We know how many reviews we have. I just gave you the number. Those numbers are nowhere near close to each other. So for those of you who are still sitting there on your lazy bums and you haven't actually taken the time to do 5 stars and write the whole review, we ask you to do it. Why? Because if you leave a 5-star review, we read it live right here on the program. And we got 3 more for you this week. The first from Almost 500, D-Mo_1252. Hate wrestling, hate the pod, 5 stars. I presume you are doing that off the Logan Paul segment from last week's show. Demo, we appreciate you. Very funny. NGFRH, Paul, take notes, 5 stars. Good stuff. I presume you are talking to Paul Levesque and not Paul Heyman, because we have no notes here for Paul Heyman, only Paul Levesque, but we appreciate that. And lastly, Caveman0728, just started listening, 5 stars. Just started listening. I'm a huge fan of all wrestling, just like hearing about it a lot. Very interested in hearing more from you guys. Well, Caveman, appreciate you as a new listener, jumping and dropping that 5-star review. All 3 of you, we acknowledge you.
Acknowledge.
Big acknowledgement right there.
Acknowledge.
And Chris, off the top, we have a number of listeners who have sent in questions and comments to the show, and we're going to sprinkle those throughout this entire episode. But I had a number off the top that we needed to address, and I'm going to hit you with 3 in a row here. The first, Chris Wise at the #1 Wise Watch on Twitter. He said, this is from 2 weeks ago. Listen to the pod. I 100% agree with the Silver King on the fake title, real title debate. People's Championship is fake. Punk was the AEW champion. Vintage's worst take since Samantha Irvin. I will point out, there's also a Spotify commenter, and I apologize, I don't have your name right in front of me. She thought our argument over that was uncomfortable. Like we were actually going at each other. I mean, we got heated a little bit, but it wasn't uncomfortable, at least not for me.
Well, I was hoping that the comment was going to say Chris was wise for his take, but based on the tone of this first one, I'm guessing the next 2 are not going to be in my favor.
Oh no,
but I still stand by that take.
They're much worse.
I also think I've had worse takes.
You absolutely have. Michelle Murray at @QuirkyNerd_. For Chris, the crying from Bianca Belair in the pod was the realization and immediate shock of seeing her best friend get her ass kicked by the other best friend. She didn't understand what was happening. Then, when she cried in the ring with Naomi, Bianca still had nothing to go on other than Jade's reaction. Maybe she hoped Jade got it wrong. She didn't get to talk to either of them, as she said. Naomi finally admitting it was the knife being twisted on her heart. It's like you have all these suspicions of your man cheating, then some girl texts your phone, you confront him, and he admits it. It's like, damn, that really confirmed my suspicion. Even though I thought I knew, it still hurts more hearing him actually say it. Also, Kevin at RVA Kev said, I love Chris Vanini, but he has 3 of the all-time worst takes. He now has a full medal stand. Gold medal, Samantha Irvin's Cody call at WrestleMania being bad. Silver medal, Lita was a bigger star than Trish Stratus. And now the bronze medal, Bianca should have no-sold her best friend, telling her that she killed her other best friend. I will also note, to be fair to you, Mizzou Tigers football fan on Spotify said he agreed that the crying was a bit much. Kevin's comment and Michelle's comment were both better, though.
First off, the crying in the cage, the elimination chamber was fine. It was the second time doing that to me felt. I even went back and watched it after we had that, and on second watch, I was like, yeah, at this point, she should have kind of been prepared for what answer was going to come.
But she was hoping that wouldn't be the case because they're all best friends. Michelle explained this to you.
That's fine. I can't believe I forgot about the Lita Trish one. I still can't believe there are people who don't agree with me on that one.
Dude, I mean, it's not even... Trish Stratus is a legitimate star. She's on, like, Canada's Got Talent.
I'm talking about within wrestling, though.
Trish Stratus is a bigger
than
star.
The Hardy Boys and Lita back in, like, 2000.
There was a short run time where the Hardy Boys and Lita were massive. There's no question about that. Trish Stratus did business for WWE. Lita did not do business for WWE. Think about it this way. When Lita was the most over, she was with the Hardys. When Trish was the most over, she was by herself.
Would it be fair to say Lita's highest popularity, yes, in the group, but she was still part of the group, was higher than Trish's high in terms of being over?
I don't believe so. I think Trish at her maximum was a bigger and brighter star for WWE than Lita was. But
maybe,
but I'll tell you, at their peaks, they were close. I think that's fair to say.
Okay, we got a lot to talk about.
We do.
So I might have another take in here in this episode that people may not like.
We'll see. I have more though. Jack on Spotify, great episode last week, guys. But you forgot to say after Raw that Seth Rollins is now the real AEW World Champion. All jokes aside, you guys legitimately host the best wrestling podcast out there. Your insights are unmatched, and I look forward to it every week. So I appreciate that, Jack. But you make a great point. I did forget to mention that Seth Rollins right now is the lineal AEW champion and the lineal real AEW champion. So that is immensely interesting, and we did not consider that. Also, at Nirmal Pratap 2984 on YouTube, been listening to this podcast on literally every medium since I discovered it just after WrestleMania 39. Still the best wrestling podcast then and now. Keep it up. Love Getting Over. I wanted to mention that so I could remind all of you to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Not only do you get full audio from all the episodes, if you prefer to listen to it there, you also get clips of our past interviews on video and brand new interviews full length on video. We just did an hour with Vic Joseph ahead of last weekend. Again, you can find us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Just like you mentioned, Chris, we have a ton of show left. The main event, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if time allows the last word, all still to come. I don't know that time will allow.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
And we do have a couple quick items here off the top. Lillian Garcia announced after SmackDown she will no longer be the full-time ring announcer for WWE, though she will be taking the role for every episode of Saturday night's main event. This certainly comes as no surprise. When Samantha Irvin picked up and left seemingly out of the blue, it was clear that WWE brought Lillian in to kind of tide them over until they figured out what to do with a full-time replacement. I believe we said as much on that show. That was our expectation. Lillian was just starting to get back into a rhythm, so that's disappointing to a degree. But I'm interested to see who ends up taking that role Friday on SmackDown, whether it's Alicia Taylor doing double duty, Mike Rome coming back to the main roster, someone else stepping up. Maybe Alicia does both through the European tour or WrestleMania, and we see someone after that. Still to be determined, but I am glad that Lillian got to do it in Barcelona because she apparently lived in Spain for a long period of time, even though she's American. So that had to have been special to her on Friday night.
That is cool. I didn't actually see that news until you said it right now. Lillian is great. She's a legend. It was great to have her come back. Like you said, we didn't expect it to be kind of a permanent thing.
Right.
And I feel like I don't do they have ring announcers in the Hall of Fame? I feel like they should, and that she should eventually get in.
I don't think Howard Finkel is in the Hall of Fame. Or Tony Chimmel.
Crazy if he's not. Yeah. Well, if they're running out of wrestlers, they got a lot of.
I don't recall, but they should absolutely induct people like that. I want to say Mean Gene Okerlund is in the Hall of Fame.
He's got to be, yeah.
Why don't you Google while I read the next news item?
I'm doing
we'll
that.
Find out.
Yes, Howard Finkel inducted in 2009.
Okay, good. He should be. So
good. Yes,
it's gonna be. It's gonna be interesting one day. Does Samantha Irvin get into the WWE Hall of Fame? Because look, like there's some wrestlers in the Hall of Fame that really should not be there. She had a major impact in a real short period of time. I think she needs to come back and do a second run to get in. I don't know that they would do it just for a couple year stint, but she was immensely popular, and down the line that could possibly happen even if she doesn't come back.
Yeah, but Lillian, yes, one day she should get in.
Absolute no-brainer. Tony Chimmel should also be in there without even a question.
Yes.
I believe we mentioned last week that WWE will be holding the Hall of Fame on Saturday night at the Fontainebleau in Las Vegas. I circled back over to their website today. It does list 10 p.m. Pacific as a start time, which means 1 a.m. Eastern, which is absolutely wild to me. I don't get the decision-making there, but the reason I'm bringing it up again is WWE announced Monday that the NXT after WrestleMania will also be held in the same venue. So that's going to be SmackDown, Raw, NXT Stand and Deliver at T-Mobile Arena, Hall of Fame and NXT at the Fontainebleau, and then WrestleMania at Allegiant Stadium back-to-back nights. That is a loaded week of WWE. I wasn't going to go to WrestleMania anyway this year, but I'll tell you this, if I was going to go to a WrestleMania, I would want to go to all of those events.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out the start time, and I realized, look, if they're playing or if they're doing SmackDown, they're going to need time to get over to another arena, essentially.
Yeah.
To do the Hall of Fame if you're doing it somewhere else and you're doing it Friday night. So I guess that's why I do like the kind of looking back at the Hall of Fame better when it's not in the arena. It just looks better.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it, but I don't think I'm going to watch that live.
I can't with the number of shows that we're going to be doing, Chris. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably be doing a show Friday night after SmackDown.
Right. We're going to do the WrestleMania Go Home Show, the special extra podcast Friday night. Then we have to wake up Saturday, do the NXT Stand and Deliver instant analysis. Then we have 2 more for both nights of WrestleMania. I can't watch a 3-hour Hall of Fame starting at 1 a.m. I go to bed late, but I'm not going to go to bed at 4 or 5 a.m. Eastern just to then turn around and wake up for I think it's a 1 p.m. start for NXT Stand and Deliver. That's crazy.
That is crazy. Godspeed to the WWE employees.
It might even be a noon start for that now that I think about it. I just don't understand what they're doing. By the way, it's 5 miles away from T-Mobile Arena, so it says 13 minutes in heavy traffic. Perhaps not that bad, but again, you have to move all those people to a different venue. I presume a lot of the wrestlers don't show up. It's Paul Levesque going into the Hall of Fame. Now that I say that, maybe they do. He is their boss, so perhaps everyone will show up anyway. But that's a late night if you're performing on WrestleMania 24 hours later, less than 24 hours later. That's very surprising.
And I'm also curious how many fans are just going to be expecting it after SmackDown and won't realize how late it's going to be.
No, I think they'll realize it, but who's going to go? Maybe it's a different fan base entirely. My question is this. Are they doing it because of the venue or because of the fact that they just want to sell more tickets? I have to guess it's the latter.
I don't think that many tickets for one Hall of Fame show is like that much of a difference on the ledger, you know. I figure just it's nicer, it's a nicer place, it looks better, fancier.
It's definitely going to look better. There's no question about that.
I'm guessing that's why.
All right, we will find out. WWE this week dropped freaking big and dirty from the official names of Seth Rollins, Bronson Reed, and Dominic Mysterio, respectively. About damn time. It's fine to refer to them with their nicknames, like whenever you want, but for it to be part of their character names was always silly. And to that end, Rollins on Raw no longer had freaking in his bottom third nameplate. However, Alicia Taylor did announce him as Seth freaking Rollins. So just a point of order about how WWE is doing it. I also noticed, and I think, Chris, you may have mentioned this to me previously, but Seth's Titantron each week, the color scheme gets changed according to the outfit he wears. So he was wearing black and green for Raw this week. That was the color of his Titantron. I think last week or the week before, it was like a fuchsia color or a pink, and it matched that. I just think that's a really nice touch, given the outfits are such a huge part of the character.
I did not notice that. That's interesting. I'm glad the freaking has been dropped. But Big Bronson Reed and Dirty Dom, I was fine with those being official. because I think that is kind of how a lot of people refer to Dominic Mysterio. And the freaking, yes, you had to drop that officially. The other two, I could go either way on.
Yeah, the whole thing with the freaking was it was meant to be effing, like Fucking. And when you then diminished it to being a, cute nickname, and then you played it up with the way he dressed, it diminished like the meaning of saying that about him. You're supposed to call him Seth F. Rollins, right? That's the idea, because he's so great. And instead it was, oh, he's a freak. And that was not what he was supposed to be. As an overview of TV this week, Chris, here's my take. The European tour saved a couple editions of SmackDown and Raw from being even more ho-hum than they otherwise would have been. Barcelona on Friday and Brussels on Monday, they amped up relatively mediocre shows and made them feel special. Barcelona was an extremely strong crowd on Friday. It did pale in comparison to like Lyon and Berlin last year. But I will say, a listener who goes by ERG wrote in that he watched SmackDown on TV after attending live, and it was 5 times louder in the arena than it came across on TV, for whatever that's worth. Brussels was even better Monday, but as the show and its content dragged on, so did the crowd. And that's understandable. They started so ridiculously hot with Cody Rhodes and John Cena, plus the opening match was fire. Nothing that followed that segment and match respectively lived up to either as a story or as a wrestling match. But Raw was particularly odd for me on Monday because you had the Cena Rhodes segment, Chris, combined with the extended show open. It went about 30, maybe 35 minutes. Matches over the latter 2/3 of Raw, they appeared to get cut for time. Either that or they were booked short for no discernible reason. I say that because Raw only went 2 hours and 22 minutes. No, not Jay-Z's 22/2s, but 2:22. The shortest Raw of the Netflix era. And they did it on the road to WrestleMania in front of a crazy crowd. If there was any time not to go short, it's now. So I was flummoxed by that. You could have added 2 minutes to every match. You get 2:30. Put Lyra Valkyria on the show. Let Seth Rollins go deeper into his promo, which I thought was the strangest segment from Monday night. They're in Europe. Where's Sheamus? I was just perplexed at some of the choices made across both shows, but particularly Raw on Monday.
Yeah. The second half of Raw was kind of weird. Just a weird, clunky show after the open. It's made me think, and it feels like not everybody is doing the whole tour. It feels like some of them are coming in maybe for the second half, and maybe some are only there for the first half, as opposed to doing 3 weeks of this.
Yeah.
So
I mean, listen, I would take a 3-week vacation. If WWE was like, we want you in Europe, we want you in all these shows, I'd be like, okay, let's go. Wouldn't you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would. I'm trying to book a trip to Italy and France this summer at the moment.
I'm saying
so,
yes, I'm just saying you want to put me up for 21 days and have me visit 5 or 6 countries. I'm in. Like maybe they're not offering that, but that's what I would take.
Sure, but I mean, you've heard wrestlers kind of talk about the drag.
They want to be home.
European tour because of house shows and all that. So I don't know, but there was a lot of like, this star will be on the show next week type of stuff on these first couple of shows. So it feels like not everybody's doing the whole thing. So I'm guessing that's part of it. As for the crowd, this is why I was excited about doing the European tour before WrestleMania, because the crowds would just amp up the excitement. And that's what we've gotten through the first 2 shows. They've added to the biggest things going on. The shows themselves, hit and miss here and there, but they have added to the intensity a month out. And I think that's good.
Yeah, Silver King is not wrong often. And I will note, I didn't say it was a bad move to go to Europe, but I was confused by it for this long, this close to WrestleMania. We're still 2 weeks away. We'll evaluate at the end. But this week kind of proved, especially for this particular week, like middle of March, still a whole month out, 5 weeks out almost from WrestleMania. Yeah, probably made sense to go to Europe for at least a period of time. Whether 3 weeks makes sense, we will find out. What did you think about the runtime? 2:22.
I kept thinking it was about to end because it looked like they were advertising Finn, Braun coming up, and I was like, is this about to be a 2-hour Raw? And then there was a bunch of like segments in between, so it stretched it out. It's got to be the shortest Raws in a decade or more.
Well, they were doing the 2-hour Raws on USA at the end, but yeah, for a show that could be 3 hours, it was the shortest. There's no question.
Yeah. So there was that. I liked the 2:00 Eastern start. I
Central.
always like
2 Central,
midday
3 Eastern.
sports.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, 2 Central. But acknowledging that you and I are people who work from home in media jobs, and media people love daytime sports because they're sitting at home. For a lot of other people who are at work, they probably didn't like it. But we get 3 more. It's weird that Raw is early and SmackDown is not. I understand why. But first Raw, middle of the day, I liked it.
I didn't actively dislike it, but 3 p.m. was early. If it was 5 or 6, I would have loved it. But 3, it was like, I'm still kind of working and doing stuff, but I can't miss John Cena and Cody Rhodes in the ring together, right? So I felt like I had to watch. It was incumbent upon us, and we did get an opportunity to tape this show earlier than we normally would, which was a slight positive on the back end. I did also want to note, Chris, WWE used a somewhat old school setup for these shows. It looked like what you would see during Raw's War in the late 90s, but modernized. No LEDs on the barricades or ring posts, thin ramp, simple stage, real visual pleasing the show was. The fans were more of a focus than the set and the LEDs. And whenever WWE gets an opportunity to highlight the fans, that's always a positive.
Well, it's one of the reasons I love the shows in Europe is because the arenas and stadiums are just built so differently. Every arena in the US is pretty much the same thing. And so when they go to these other shows, they kind of have to do things a little bit differently because the tunnel is in a different spot or seating is just unusual. And so that makes the shows feel different and fun. I love how unique they look because the week-to-week Raw and SmackDown, they look the same. They're lit the same. You can never tell where they really are. This kind of forces them in a different environment, and I always think it looks great.
And it's why you and I both want WWE to have Raw and SmackDown be at some unique venues. Do one outdoors at an amphitheater. Do one not necessarily at Sturgis or Bash at the Beach, like outside of the beach, like WCW used to do. But there are venues in this country, like when AEW ran Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe Stadium. There are venues that you can run that give your show a unique look. And we've seen it with NXT and AEW recently, and we're seeing it with WWE when they go to Europe. If you get into just a different visual atmosphere, it actually enhances the show because it captivates your eyes. It has you looking all over the place, whereas everything else in the United States is very cookie cutter. When you run the arena in Miami, the arena in Nashville, and even Barclays Center, arenas like that, they're all pretty much the same to your point.
Yeah.
For the second straight year, I wanted to mention this before we get into the rest of the show. We will be running Getting Over Madness, a men's NCAA tournament bracket pool exclusively for all of you, our listeners, are Getting Over Heads. We sent out a tweet with a link to the bracket page on Monday evening. So hit us up on Twitter at Getting Overcast or Blue Sky at Getting Over. Find the link and sign up. Brackets close at noon Eastern on Thursday. This will be your only audio reminder to join the pool. There will be a prize. I completely forgot what we gave away for a prize last year. We'll either do the same thing or something better for 2025. But speaking of social media, make sure you follow us on Twitter at Getting Overcast or Blue Sky at Getting Over for episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can also send in questions and comments for the show, and we will do our best to read them live on the air. Speaking of reminders,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. And we do have a new monthly subscriber. Dougie G said, been a dedicated listener since my friend and I discovered y'all on our road trip from San Francisco to Los Angeles for WrestleMania 39. Finally subscribing because I need a forum to roast Vintage's horrendous take on the Naomi Bianca segment. This was worse than his Samantha Irvin take. We've seen I'm selfish, I did it for me heel turns 10,000 times. Naomi doing it for herself and their friendship is what makes this interesting, nuanced, layered. It also blends the lines of kayfabe and reality because we all know Jade was put in that tag team by Triple H because she wasn't ready to carry matches on her own. In the coming weeks, there's so many opportunities to highlight that every match that they have booked was Bianca doing all the work, Jade getting the hot tag, and winning through some botches. That kind of blended kayfabe reality storytelling is why this is so interesting, and I hope they bring that in the coming weeks. If I'm channeling my inner Silver King and booking the damn territory, Night 1 of WrestleMania, Bianca wins. Night 2, she helps Naomi and reveals it's all a facade. And then we get the second coming of the two-man power trip with Naomi and Bianca and put the IC title on Naomi to really sell it. End of rant. Vintage, I love you. I love the show, but this was so wrong. It made me so passionate that I realized I needed to give y'all money for making me feel this strongly about a podcast. Keep up the amazing work. It's the highlight of my week. So, lesson learned, Chris.
Am I just getting buried on this podcast?
Well, no. Lesson learned. Lesson learned. Keep putting forward horrendous takes. That way people will literally pay us so that we will read their extended rants on the show. That's the ticket. But seriously, thanks for subscribing, Dougie. Would love that 2-night booking if it didn't include Bianca winning Night 1. Io Sky needs to retain. Chris, your thoughts on this?
Well, thank you for signing up. I don't know what it is. I feel like over the last, there was the Samantha one, but I feel like over the last 4 or 5 months, we've disagreed on a lot more than ever before. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's you. I don't know if it's whatever it is, but we are doing this more often. And frankly, I think that makes for a better podcast. So that's good. But because we did used to agree on everything. But
that's true. It's also, I think the reason why it resonates is because it's not forced, right? Like you watch, and no offense to these shows, because this show is very much inspired in many ways by Pardon the Interruption on ESPN. Love Mike Wilbon, Tony Kornheiser. There are occasions where you watch that show and you're like, they're kind of forcing themselves on opposite sides just to create a debate. There's certainly other shows on a certain worldwide leader in sports where debate is forced front and center. We don't do that. A lot of times we agree. Occasionally we disagree. And when we do, sometimes it can get heated, but it's never personal between Chris and I. We always keep it respectful. And the idea is to have fun. Speaking of fun, we have a loaded show still left for you right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. And we're going to kick off the meat of this episode by invading your ear holes the way we always do, sliding into the main event.
This is the main event.
Now, this is technically a 2-part main event this week, but it's really one extended part and a little extra at the end. Cody Rhodes guested on Miz TV during SmackDown, which did not include Carmelo Hayes, presumably because he had a match on the show, but I was looking forward to him being part of this last week. The Miz did his general insults, saying Cody should have sold his soul, but instead he got beat up by 2 rappers, Travis Scott and John Cena. Then he cut off the crowd from singing and started ranting. Cody just kicked him in the gut, then hit Crossroads to a huge pop. Rhodes said he doesn't want to talk to anyone but Cena and dared him to actually show up on the road to WrestleMania. I just expected more from this. It was advertised. It was promoted. Look, it was hot. Barcelona loved it. Cody's black eye subsided a little bit. It was gone by Monday. Those are my takes from SmackDown.
Yeah, it kind of was what it was. And it was the kind of the beginning of big name later on another show. We're not going to give you the whole thing yet. John Cena's not here, that type of stuff. So other than that, just kind of was what it was. Right.
It was one of many times where it's like either they're telling us a star is going to appear or a star does appear, but actually doesn't do anything. And it was frustrating. So John Cena opened Raw in Brussels, well, I guess about 7 minutes after the show actually began. The heat was insane from the first note of his entrance theme. Chris, I legitimately cannot remember a single crowd response in 3 decades of watching wrestling that was so negatively reactive in the best possible way on the first note of an entrance. Even Cena at ECW One Night Stand, they booed him loudly. And I thought some of those fans might have killed him if they were given the chance. But it was not as immediately reactive as this. Maybe it was the arena, but this was crazy. And I'm going to play it just so you can recall what it sounded like.
John Cena!
I mean, it was thunderous right off the top.
It's the reaction I get when I log into this podcast. Apparently. I'll tell you what it was. It was 2011 Money in the Bank in Chicago. It was the exact same thing as the first thing I thought of when I heard that, and I loved it. Both of them are awesome. Great job by the crowd there in Brussels. It was crazy.
It was awesome. And by the way, he did not acknowledge Stu or run to the ring. So if you wanted to know whether John Cena is a heel, that tells you the man is a heel. Cena stood silently in the ring wearing his localized gimmicked gear, still on the hat, still wearing the jorts. I would say he was getting about 70% Cena sucks, 30% let's go Cena chance, unwavering in vociferousness until he put the mic on the canvas. Then he got heavy boos with fans thinking he wasn't going to speak. Cena said he's been the victim of an abusive relationship for 25 years, with fans bullying him into being their puppet with a smile on his face. Fuck you, Cena chants came in response, unedited at first. Then I think WWE realized what was said and they started editing it. Cena said, quote, "I'm not a babyface. I'm not a heel. I'm a human being." His point was fans hated him. He changed to become their favorite. And then they hated him anyway because he became a dominant wrestler and winner. Cena said he again tried to be selfless with his retirement by announcing the tour ahead of time, but fans were again happy before being angry. They're greedy and selfish. No one actually cares about him. Belgium came through singing "Na na na na, hey hey, goodbye." Cena said the fans don't deserve a new look or new music. All they get to do is watch while reflecting on how they've been awful to him all these years. Cena then responded to "We Want Cody" chants by saying they'll do the same thing to Rhodes, even those who chant "Let's go Cena." Those who wear his gear make the invisible jokes. He hates them as well. Cena said fans have to wear his slogans because they're failures who don't actively abide by them. So he's breaking up with the fans because he doesn't need them or care about them, and they don't matter. There was then an incredible camera cut where WWE found a kid who, let's just say he absolutely looked Belgian. They found him in the front row wearing Cena's new gear with the tag still on and looking absolutely distraught that his hero was shitting all over him. It was the whole "why'd he say F me for" meme on one kid. 10 out of 10 for the cameraman. Chris, this was an absolute masterclass by Cena, and yet it didn't come anywhere near taking the form I expected. I never would have thought he'd come through with the whole woe is me character arc where he felt personally victimized and insulted by how fans have treated him over like 2+ decades. I thought it was going to be more F you, I don't need you to be great, as opposed to, well, you treated me badly and it hurt my feelings. I ultimately understood why they went in that direction, but at first, I was really surprised by it. That said, it was probably the most acceptable and appropriate "you people" heel turn in WWE history. The exact opposite of when Becky Lynch tried and failed to do it like 6 or 7 years ago when the fans were always on her side. Cena had a great point that he completely altered himself to be a perfect babyface for fans. He won all the time for them, yet they rejected him for being a good person and for being great, even though we all know they actually rejected the booking more than anything. So that's that kayfabe kind of 2.0 logic. I was captivated the entire time. The crowd work was immense. The crowd was great in response. He had points that he wanted to hit. He kept deviating from them because of chance, only to circle right back to where he was before. He let the fans build the heat time and again without stepping over them. It was in many ways the antithesis to how Rock has handled such situations recently. I also loved how he specifically addressed and justified not changing his music or gear. It was like Michael Bolton in Office Space. Why should I change? You're the ones who suck. Plus, why should I give you more and more when all you do is take and take? People want new music. People want a new entrance. And they want him dressing differently. He's not going to give that to them. He's withholding what he knows they want, which again goes to that next level heel stuff, because it's not the casual fans who want that. It's the hardcore fans who want that. And then you have the whole concept of this being something that's been simmering inside of him, as opposed to Cena simply taking a bribe from Rock. It's a lot more compelling this way because it's deeper than just money and fame. It's actual hate for the fans. Given the character that he was trying to portray, the reaction that he was trying to generate, this was a 10 out of 10 before Cody Rhodes even got out there. Perfect promo, for the perfect crowd. Tough to do.
The whole thing was like surreal. Like, I'm like, we're actually seeing John Cena say these things to the fans pretty much for the first time ever. Like, I was like, literally, I was like, I can't believe this is happening. It's so weird. Now, John Cena has played a bad guy in movies.
Yeah.
Like the Fast franchise and some other things. Peacemaker, he's kind of a tweener. And he's a really good actor, and he does bad guy stuff pretty well. But seeing it in a WWE ring in his John Cena getup was just kind of a whole other experience. And it's one of those promos and moments you'll kind of always remember because it was the first time this really happened. As for the look and the getup, they did explain it well. They had a good explanation as to why he did this. Now, I have to imagine, though, those shirts were ordered and printed like a very long time ago. And let me finish this whole thought, but I think it was Meltzer who had reported the original plan was to turn him at Mania, and they instead did the Chamber. Then Brian Gewirtz, I think, said, no, that's not true at all. But the way this played out kind of felt like they don't have everything ready for him to be a heel, possibly, but they did explain it well. As for the whole kind of gimmick and strategy, I'm going to hold my thoughts on that till we finish the Cody stuff.
Sure. Well, just to circle back to the thing you just mentioned, you can read on buymeacoffee.com/gettingover the truth about all of that. These shirts would come out regardless of whether the heel turn was planned for when it was planned or planned for WrestleMania. They were selling these shirts no matter what. What's interesting to me is that WWE has not come out with heel Cena shirts, even if he doesn't wear them on screen. They did re-release some of his older shirts that you can actually buy on WWE Shop. They're like $45, $50, which for a t-shirt made by Fanatics is absolutely insane. And like, look, I'm not telling you guys what to buy or what not to buy, but if you're spending $50 on a t-shirt, you better be doing it through our WWE shop link so we at least get some commission out of that. You can find that in our social media profiles, by the way. But point is, the report there wasn't accurate. Let me just put it that way. We have the details on our subscription that you can sign up and you can read them. But these shirts were going to come out no matter what because they want to sell localized shirts. Cody Rhodes has shirts for every single city. And I bet you any city that Roman Reigns shows up in or Jey Uso shows up in, they're going to have localized shirts for them as well. They're the biggest merchandise sellers. You create special shirts. It's just what you do.
Do we think he will change before Mania or even at Mania?
I could definitely see it being a slow progression where like once The Rock comes back and they do segments together where like Cena comes out, he's a little bit more Hollywood, then a little bit more. Maybe he loses the hat, then he wears a jacket, maybe he wears a suit one week. Is it possible? Yes. But that's not the stage that they set on Monday night.
No, I'm just wondering if they will at some point because I think we've always, if he doesn't change, if he stays this way the whole time, I think I'll be let down. I want to see John Cena look different on my TV. I appreciate the heel turn, but I'd also like to take some more risks.
Remember that period of time where he got away from the blue jorts and he wore like the army fatigue cargo jorts?
Yeah.
I'd like to see him at least do something like that or wear black jorts or something. Like just do a little bit more. Wear black armbands and black jorts and get rid of the hat, but still wear the shirt. Something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, The Rock eventually went back to the Hollywood Rock theme, so they didn't do that right away.
No,
so
it was a whole progressive change of his entrance, his look. It was week by week that he changed. And still, we don't know how frequently Cena is going to be on the road to WrestleMania. My presumption is we see him one more time in Europe and then every single week in the United States, those final couple of weeks. But
we better.
Yeah, we don't know at this point. So we'll find out. Now, you mentioned the response from Cody Rhodes because there was indeed a response from Cody Rhodes. It was insane in the other direction. He got loud. Cody Rhodes. He got that chant, plus another I couldn't even make out. Rhodes said he and the fans were willing to hear Cena out, but the fans gave him their best for 25 years because Cena was special and capable of carrying the load. Cody cut him off when Cena tried to call him kid. He planted his foot in the ground as WWE champion, and he shared disappointment about getting this version of Cena when he was excited about fighting the real Cena at WrestleMania. Basically, he wasn't about to let Cena drop a fine speech on his ass. Cody said if this was the version of Cena he was going to get at WrestleMania, he'd retire his whiny bitch ass early. Mic drop, walk out. Fans screaming for Cody, cheering him. Cena was left with a mic in his hand. He was getting booed, so he dropped it himself and then exited again to na 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 hey hey goodbye chants. And then Michael Cole tore Cena a new asshole on commentary afterward. Basically, he served as the perfect punctuation to this. He reacted how WWE wants its casual fans to react. Here's Michael Cole.
For 2 decades, I believed in that man, rode alongside that man, bought everything that he was selling. Not only me, but the thousands of fans in attendance tonight, the millions around the world. And then he has the audacity to come out here tonight and blame the WWE fans. John Cena is a 16-time champion because of the fans. John Cena is a massive millionaire and a movie star because of the fans. And what does he do? He comes out and cries and acts like an irrational prick. That is what John Cena is.
I actually forgot he called him a prick. That's incredible. And I wish that was live in the arena. It wasn't just for us at home, because Cole was off the rocker right there in a positive way. Cody was excellent here. I don't want that to get lost. Not having John reply, it allows us to anticipate that future response rather than get it all at once. Brussels was basically the perfect crowd for this segment. I already said it about Cena, but they were perfect for Cody as well. I cannot imagine this being executed as well as, like, let's say in Boston. Okay, maybe in Boston, but like not Nashville or something like that. Cena having a mic in hand the entire time, but not answering after Rhodes called him a whiny bitch, just giving him a death stare like, boy, you have no idea what's coming. That was perfection, especially because it allowed Cody to get the upper hand in their first face-to-face meeting after he got crushed by them at Elimination Chamber. As we've said before, the reason this all works so well, besides the fact the fans have been waiting decades for Cena to turn heel, is because Cody is the perfect babyface to stand opposite against him. Cody getting cheered over Rock and Cena these last 2 years, it continues to tell us everything that we need to know. This dude is on a generational babyface run right now, and the cherry on top of this was both guys exiting without their music. Cody getting wildly cheered, Cena getting vociferously booed. It added so much to the presentation and the overall segment. They just knocked this shit out of the park.
So I couldn't believe that they had Cody like just stand tall the way he did. Like, I loved it. We so often don't get that. A baby face of just like stepping up, leaning in, being strong, talking crap. Cody's done that a few times over the last year, and it's great. It makes him feel like a bigger deal. He doesn't have to be crawling from underneath the entire time he's champion, because that's not Cody. Dresses in suits. He shouldn't really do that. So everything about Cody here was fantastic. My Cena thoughts overall. It was not what I expected really at all, which is not a bad thing. I think everybody kind of had in their head the John Cena heel turn promo for the last 10 to 15 years, what it would be. And what he said was exactly what I thought he would have said like 10 years ago. It was a little off for me because there was no mention of The Rock. I believe no mention of going for number 17, which I thought was the whole point of this. After the Rumble, he's talking about, I got to focus. I got to get number 17. This is the thing that's driving me right now. And instead, it doesn't appear that that's the thing that made him turn. I was like, wait, why are we complaining about?
Well, he didn't need to turn for that. He won the Elimination Chamber clean as a babyface.
That's true too. That's where we didn't have to get it right away, but we still need the why of like The Rock.
Absolutely.
Why did you team up with him? And this is where I think the problem with the Cody Rock soul thing could have led into this if they did it right. If they had done if Cody, if you come with me, join the dark side, here's this big thing we can elevate to. Cody says no, And John Cena jumps in and says yes. And it kind of tells itself right there. Instead, we got Rock and Cody are friends. Then John Cena did this shocking thing and then didn't even really explain it. And so there's the promo itself was great, but it feels like there's, at least so far, a lack of a through line to all of it to this point, where he could have cut this promo at any time. Frankly, the most heel thing he's doing is retiring. him saying, I'm sick of you fans. I've done this forever. I'm out of here at the end of the year. Like, that's kind of the thing. And instead, it was the retirement as a face turning heel. What does he want? Does he want the championship and to retire with the championship? If he hates the fans, just retire early. Why are you doing this? So that's where I was like, we need more still for it to kind of all come together. It also made me think John Cena may be heel longer than we initially thought. Like, it may be something that really goes well through WrestleMania. I think a lot of us thought, maybe he loses at Mania and then wins or loses and then changes back or something like that. But perhaps this is going to be longer and there's going to be a lot more character development to this, because this first part of it to me felt very basic.
Yeah, I mean, I let you go without, stepping on your toes there, but I think what you're saying is completely fair, but at the same time, you're being a little unfair from the standpoint that there's still a month until WrestleMania and they need to leave meat on the bone for future promo segments. If he went out there and said, here's why I'm a heel now, and here's why I've aligned with The Rock, and here's why I did this going after number 17, and here's why me going after number 17 is so important to me, then what else does he have to say in future segments? Don't forget, Cody cut him off in the middle of him speaking. Now, he went on for a long time, but he was only getting started about why he no longer likes, trusts, or cares about the fans. The next part probably would have been, and here's why I did what I did, but Cody wasn't going to stand for that. He came in and did his part. So you have to leave meat on the bone. You have to leave something for Rock to do with Cena. And you need to have that quest for 17 bubble up right before WrestleMania, because that is what the match is ultimately about. This wasn't so much about the WrestleMania match. This was about a personal issue between them that is part of the storyline for the WrestleMania match.
But it wasn't. It wasn't a person. It was only a personal thing between them. It only was when Cody came out. The Rock did his whole deal and only mentioned Cody because the crowd said his name. Like, that's why it was like, it felt like this barely had anything to do with the story they've been telling us. It was just a thing that happened. And then Cody came out to
this wasn't about the story. This was about Cena's character. He was establishing the heel character, his motivation. You have to be able to do that. Like, you think about it like this, okay? If you have a 90-minute movie, right? You have to get so much set up in those first 20, 25 minutes because you only have so much left in order to tell the story of the character. If you have a 3-hour movie, and I just saw The Brutalist, which I think may have been 3.5 hours, they established this guy's character over the first 90 minutes because they had the opportunity to do so. That's what they're doing with Cena in this case. They're not doing a speed run because the guy's going to be there for multiple weeks on the road to WrestleMania. Yeah. So they're explaining, here's why I turned against the fans. And the next step is, here's why I aligned with The Rock. And also, here's why I aligned with The Rock. And that's going to help me win number 17.
I know, but we only have a month left here now. Like, it ain't the day after the Rumble and we got a ton of time, especially when we know these guys aren't on every single show. It's like, I don't want it to finally get the explanation on the go home.
But what are you asking for? The segment was 25 minutes as it was. I forgot what I said. 24 minutes?
I'm just...
Did you want a 36-minute segment so we could go through all of that?
He didn't need... I mean, if we're being honest, he kind of said the same thing for about 10 minutes straight. He just kept saying the fans. The other, I don't really buy the turn against the fans right now. He's barely been on our screen for the last 10 years. He's not around very often. Yeah. The whole point was, I'm coming back. I'm going to be here most of the time and I'm getting 17. And he's back whining about the fans. We haven't even seen him in 2 or 3 weeks.
That's what he was complaining about though. He said, I did this all for you. I pre-announced the fact that I was going to do a retirement tour. You guys cheered me. You were excited for me at the Royal Rumble when I came back and I gave it a shot. And then what did you do? I gave that press conference. You didn't like the way that press conference went, did you? And now all you do, he didn't say that, but he was intimating it. He's like, you didn't, and then all of a sudden you guys turned on me. So what did the fans do that turned on him since the Royal Rumble. They thought he was a heel in that press conference, which he was. That's the way he was acting.
That's very
But what's the other complaint been? Even though it's reasonable to you and I and smart fans, but Cena is on the road to WrestleMania, and he hasn't been on the road to WrestleMania. The guy didn't show up between the Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber. He turned heel on Cody and then didn't show up until this Monday. So fans are complaining that this guy, who in his mind went up and said, hey, I'm going to do a retirement tour. I'm going to be there as much as I can over the next year because I'm doing it for all you fans. Those same fans are now, who cheered him for that initially, are now complaining that they're not seeing him enough. So he can't win with the fans. That was the entire point of the promo.
So because people were upset I was gone for a few weeks, I'm throwing everything away and turning heel at the last
He snapped. It's enough. He's sick of it. He's been doing it for 25 years.
Then just
it's the
retire.
straw that broke the camel's back.
Why is he? If the main part of this,
because he's going to do it his way and he wants to win number 17. He's already established.
But he didn't say that, and that was my problem.
I'm for some reason I almost called you Cody, which was really strange. Chris. He has said that multiple times now, including immediately after the Royal Rumble. That's his motivation.
I'm just saying, if he had cut this promo 10 years ago, it would have been the exact same thing. Just take out the line of, I said I'm going to retire.
Yeah, but that's
why it felt a little off.
That's because he should have turned heel 10 years ago.
Correct. It felt like they just pulled it out of the drawer. Here's the thing we had 10 years ago.
For me, this was this was one of the most appropriate you people heel turns in wrestling history. Everything he said was factual.
That at all. I would have agreed with it 10 years ago.
It's still true.
But not when he's been a part-timer.
But it's still true. He's angry at the way they treated him for 20 years. 25 years, he said. Did you like this or not? I'm trying to figure out whether you liked this. I thought you liked it.
I liked it. I wanted a lot more, and we can still get a lot more. And I'm fully
But again, if you wanted a lot more, dude,
that I will love.
If you're wanting a lot more, that needed to be a 45-minute segment to get all the single people.
No,
and it would have had
didn't need to spend 20 minutes talking about the fans.
And it would have had to go back and forth, and then Cody probably wouldn't have gotten as strong of a ending last word prominence as he ultimately did, because they would be going back and forth. Cena's responding to Cody. The whole reason the segment was set up the way it was so that Cena had no response to Cody. Historically, whenever Cena goes head-to-head with someone in a promo battle, he either gets the last word or he gets a lot of words going back and forth. Whether it's Roman Reigns, whether it's Randy Orton, Edge, The Miz, doesn't matter who it is. In this case, Cody called him a whiny bitch. He dropped the mic on his ass. Cena had nothing to say.
No, and I like that. That's why it went into.
So that's why it didn't keep going. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
That's fine. I didn't totally buy the why given the context of everything.
The why now.
It didn't really have a through line. Like he turned heel after The Rock gives him the throat slash. We'll get the explanation later, but it just was like, why?
Yeah, I think what you were wanting this to be was, why did you side with The Rock as opposed to why do you dislike the fans now?
Yeah, if he just come out, even if we don't have the whole, he just says, the fans, you're always on me. You've always been on me for 25 years. And I've lost for 5 years straight. I haven't gotten a win because I've been trying to give the fans what they want. I said at the Rumble, I'm done giving people what they want. I'm doing what's best for business. What's best for business is me winning number 17. And this is how I'm going to do it. Screw all you guys. I'm going home. Like that, but we didn't get like the second half of that. So it felt incomplete.
So I agree that would be a concise way to kind of like tell the whole story in one quick moment. But they're trying to build a deeper, more complex character that's more nuanced than that. And that's part of the WWE that we like now. That's not basic and it's not all shoved together. If he was only going to appear one more time before WrestleMania, I would agree with you. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we're seeing him 3-4 more times before WrestleMania.
We need him every week, Raw or SmackDown. He has to be on a show every
ideally,
week.
Or if he misses a week, he needs to be on both shows the next week. I agree with that. Just so you all know, breaking the fourth wall a little bit, we are taping this on Monday night, and I have my television on while we're doing the podcast. I'm watching the New York Knicks and Miami Heat basketball game. The Knicks are my favorite team. It's just on in the background. But while we're talking and while we were finishing up this segment, I look up. And who do I see on my television but Vincent Kennedy McMahon? And then about 4 minutes later, I'm just seeing it in the background again. I look. I see Shane McMahon separately. I believe, and I could be wrong about this, they're both at the game on the same side of the court, not sitting next to each other.
That was going to be my follow-up. I'm pulling it up here on my TV.
I'm going to keep my eye on it. Like as we keep going with the show, I could be wrong. Maybe Vince got up or maybe one of them moved. I don't know. But I think Vince is like a couple rows in front of Shane and they're both at the game. That would be really, really odd unless it's a situation where it's like, Madison Square Garden, they do give tickets out to celebrities, and the bigger the celebrity, the closer you are. And they have like 3 or 4 rows of celebrity seats. So maybe it's that Vince and whoever he's with are in the front row. And then the second tier of seats are where Shane is located. But I'm just telling you, I'm watching the game, my favorite team. And we're talking about, Paul Levesque's booking in WrestleMania. And, right after Raw, I see both McMahons on my television. Kind of weird.
That's funny.
So I said it was really a 1-part main event, and I meant that. But I'm just going to throw these into this segment because I don't even think they're gradable. They're just things that happened that have to do with another expected main event at WrestleMania. So Paul Heyman in the ring on SmackDown hyped the release of WWE 2K25 with Roman Reigns on the cover. He had a funny line about not playing until after SmackDown was over to keep the ratings high. He put over CM Punk as his friend, and he chastised Seth Rollins. When he mentioned that Reigns would appear live in Italy, the fans booed because he was not there live, rightly so. As was the case with the Cody segment on SmackDown, these were both on the same show. It was a bunch of nothing. Heyman did his thing, flipping between heel and face. But frankly, it was one of the worst promos of his entire career because he had no content. It was basically like a horribly shaded advertorial.
I mean, there was just nothing he could do with that, and he did what he could. And that's where, again, it felt like having half the roster there or not having some of the big names there. Just kind of, we have to make an appearance and talk about something, but that's about all we can do, and nothing there.
And then not the same, but similar on Raw, Seth Rollins got 2 extended serenades before chants for both CM Punk and Roman Reigns. Rollins was unsatisfied with his technical win over CM Punk because he was seconds away to ending Punk's career and his WrestleMania dream with another stomp. He informed that Reigns and Punk will both be at SmackDown on Friday, so he will be there to solve that problem. And then he had the crowd serenade him one more time because there was no ending to the segment. That was it. It was almost identical to Heyman from SmackDown in that it promoted another show and failed to accomplish anything on the show that it was on. I'd have loved it for Rollins to be fuming at Reigns for not allowing him to pin and injure Punk. He should have been angry and passionate and demanding. Instead, he was out there cool and calm, poised. It made for a short, unentertaining segment, and it was massively disappointing given he was one of the bigger stars on the show outside of Cody and Cena.
It's like one of those 1980s promos you cut backstage for the next town. And you're like, we're coming to your next town, and Roman Reigns and CM Punk are going to be there. So that was that. Also, by the way, that SmackDown is in Bologna, Italy.
It is.
Home of the Venini clan. That is where my ancestors come from. My great-grandfather, Agenor, came over from Bologna. Agenor came over around World War I. And my grandpa, who's no longer with us, used to go back there every other year, and kind of have a connection to the family. We don't really have a connection with the family out there anymore, and I don't know the Italian I learned in college, but I saw Bologna coming up, and I was like, I know that place.
Have you ever been yourself?
To that place. I've not been. My grandpa always said he was going to take us as kids. We kind of just, we'll get there. And then you get older, you forget to get back to it. And then your grandparents are gone. So take them up on those opportunities. But I did do a, before my grandpa died, I talked with him and my grandma for like an hour, 2 hours about the whole family history and recorded it with my voice recorder. So I've kind of got all of that to document at some point. So if you ever have the opportunity, talk to your relatives about where you guys came from, when you came over to America and all that. Everybody's got a cool story. Nation of immigrants, Agenor Venini. That's why I'm here today. So shout out Bologna.
I regret not doing that. Like sitting down and actually taking an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours and just going through the family history and just learning it and also documenting it. Like I know my mom and some of my other family knows it, but obviously not as well as my grandparents would have. And that is definitely a regret. So anyone who's younger listening, you have both your grandparents or any grandparents around, that is totally advisable because as you go later in life, that is something that you would regret not doing it. So I'm glad that you got the opportunity. Do you want to go to Bologna?
Oh, I do. I do. My grandpa's brother one time told me about it. It's kind of it's a transportation hub. It's where all the railroads go to. So in planning my trip to Italy and France this summer, I don't think we're going there. But as a family, I'd like to give.
If you're going to Italy, why wouldn't you go? How far is it from where you're going?
we're going to try to go to Rome. So Bologna is like way more north, so it's a bit out of the way. We've got several things we want to hit in a short amount of time. So, and I don't know the family there. I'd have to buy.
Sure, but I mean, I feel like that's one of those situations. Maybe just because I see movies, but it's one of those situations where it's like, okay, yeah, you don't know any of them at all, but you make the connection and you go. Unless it's like Frank Costanza visiting his brother out there, maybe it won't go as well.
Yeah, no, I want to do that, but I want to do it with my whole family.
No, that makes sense.
Convincing my parents to get on a plane is an ordeal.
No, you should absolutely do it with your parents versus just doing it yourself. No question about that. I did want to circle back before we get out of this segment, though. Part of the problem with the Heyman segment in particular, but really all of this, is the fact that Reigns right now in 2025 is the most over he's ever been. Because don't get it twisted, he was massively over as a heel. But babyface Roman, this guy, WWE failed to truly activate for a decade. The character they finally have in their grasp after all of this time, that Roman is more over than ever when he actually shows up, yet he appears on TV less than he ever has before. I mean, we cannot get 2 straight weeks of this dude on television. One appearance before the Raw Netflix debut, if memory serves, only a taped promo from a doc that was near his home before the Royal Rumble, and then nothing between then and last week. WWE may be on fire right now. The lack of Reigns' television appearances has seriously hurt the product over the last 3 months. He raises the rent when he's on screen. We are a month away from WrestleMania. He should basically be on every show back in the United States, and hopefully he's on a couple of these shows in Europe, not just this Friday. This season, WrestleMania season, and then going into SummerSlam, this needs to be Roman Reigns' babyface season because WWE will badly need him if they're building a 2-night SummerSlam for the first time ever and are trying to book it to a level of a WrestleMania and don't have Reigns regularly on television. You can sell WrestleMania without Roman Reigns there weekly. I don't know that you can sell SummerSlam without him.
Well, that's where it becomes frustrating that the main event storylines are chock full of part-timers. And you can only ask Jey Uso and Gunther and Rollins and Cody to kind of carry so much. But when so many of these things are one-sided and you have to come out and cut a promo where the other person's not there or you can't advance the story, it sucks, man. Like, we're a month out of Mania and we have one Cena promo on this story and we haven't had a Roman promo yet about what they're going to get into. It really feels like we're just cramming it all in for one mad dash at the last month. And I'd love to see all these guys a lot more. They're great. And when you see so few of them over SmackDown and Raw, as we did this weekend, it just kind of hits you of like, man, we got some great stuff and we're just not seeing it every week.
Yeah, the extended timeline between the start of the year in WrestleMania and also the Royal Rumble in WrestleMania, we looked at that as a godsend for WWE. More time to develop storylines and all this. The biggest issue is the main event for both nights features part-timers. Cena's been literally filming movies. Reigns, it's just in his contract not to work that much, I guess. It's hurting them because you have 2 major featured players who are just not showing up, and you're asking everyone else, like you just said, to carry the water. And when your Royal Rumble winners are panned by at least portions of the audience, and I know the live audience loves Jey Uso, I'm not trying to say otherwise, but when those are not the strongest matches and your Elimination Chamber matches are your true WrestleMania main events, which, by the way, I just kind of realized it's possible that neither Royal Rumble winner actually main events WrestleMania. I have to believe that's a first time ever, or first time in a long time, at least.
WrestleMania 34, it was Shinsuke and Asuka who won the Rumbles that year.
And neither of them
main event the show.
Yeah.
It's
first time in a long time then, at least.
It really does. Honestly, like, the road to WrestleMania used to be like Rumble to Mania. And over the last 2 years, it's really been just like the last month. We haven't drawn it out.
Well, last year, because they did that WrestleMania kickoff show, because they did the WrestleMania kickoff show last year, and because Elimination Chamber was in Perth, it did feel like it was shortly after the Rumble to WrestleMania. They had to do the pivot. It went a long time because of the pivot. This year, it's really just like chamber to WrestleMania. And it's kind of odd. They're going to have to rethink that for 2026. All right, that was the main event. We still have a ton left to discuss across Raw and SmackDown. We're going to get to all of it right now by moving into the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And I'm sorry, Miss Rosie Perez, I call a spade, it just is what it is. But you can't give credit to anything dude says. Same dude to give you ice and you own some sure it is. It's time to wake up the dead. You sound a little naive in them articles that I read.
The Bianca Belair, Naomi, Jade Cargill segment for last week was replayed on SmackDown. I missed a bit of nuance in that. When Jade entered the arena, Bianca gave her like the go-ahead gesture, just when it came to attacking Naomi. An empty arena interview with Cargill followed. She said she's physically fine, but called Naomi pathetic for thinking she needed to ride someone's coattails. Jade shared that she only knew it was Naomi because she saw her running away while blacking out. She was saying what Naomi did was emotionally and spiritually painful. And then Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez walked into the arena talking shit, a full deck below her. They were angry. They got blamed for it. And that led to a challenge between Jade and Liv next week. Liv is going to get murdered on Friday, but I'm sure the match will end in disqualification because neither of them really should be taking a pinfall right now. The goal here will be Liv bumping her ass off to make Jade look good. And I am quite sure she will do that. Cargill, unfortunately, super robotic with her answers. But I enjoyed the way this actually played out as a segment. I love how Morgan and Rodriguez are total shit stirrers. Liv is always right, and she's always entertaining. She is more over without the main title than she was when she had it. This was good.
This was good, and Liv and Raquel are in the right.
Totally.
They got blamed for something they didn't do. So it was having an empty arena interview interrupted because they're just kind of at the building. It was like kind of a more different way to kind of approach it. I liked it.
Because they're so loud and annoying too. Not just that they were talking, they were like screaming. They wanted her to hear her. It was just hysterical. Yeah. We had Charlotte Flair against B-Fab. The face got a pre-match promo saying she would start her legacy with a win over Flair. I noticed for the first time that B-Fab is announced from Hall of Fame City, Ohio. And it's kind of hysterical that Canton is such like an otherwise nothing city. They can't call it that. They call it Hall of Fame City. Flair thankfully let B-Fab get a decent amount of offense, but she also took some truly awful phantom bumps. Now, there was some controversy here because Flair did what I affectionately call the thigh driller, a special move for Stephanie Vaquer. She executes it in NXT. She has her whole career. Let's be clear. Charlotte did not steal this move or sequence. She has done it in WWE for a decade. However, let me ask you to use some logic and reason. With everything you know and have heard about Charlotte, do you believe she went back to the lab bringing this back for a nothing match against B-Fab just because she felt like it, or possibly because someone joined WWE and now does the move regularly? Which is the more logical assumption to make in this situation? You know the answer. And by the way, seeing the way Stephanie does it, Charlotte should never do it again. It looked like absolute trash comparatively. B-Fab's head was nowhere near the canvas. Anyway, Charlotte hit natural selection, won with a figure eight. She refused to release it after the bell. Tiffany Stratton saved and was wearing identical gear. Their brawl got broken up by 15 officials, literally 5 different times. It got ridiculous at one point. Charlotte was just straight allowed to jump off the table onto Tiffany with no one preventing her from doing it. Flair appeared at one point to legitimately back elbow Stratton in the face, and Tiffany seemed to hit her in the back multiple times as a receipt. This ended with Stratton doing a swanton bomb into 20 people ringside. And then later, as that Miz TV segment with Cody was about to start after the break, the ladies continued brawling by the stage. 2 more pull-aparts. This time, Stratton did a swanton bomb off the top of the Titantron to stand tall. 10 out of 10 from the Ukrainian judge on that one, but neither of the swantons came anywhere near landing on Flair. Credit to the fans for making noise throughout the B-Fab match because it would have been utterly silent in the United States. It was not well wrestled. The best part was Flair healing it up, and she flicked off the fans at one point. Charlotte, though, had immense ring rust, and she backed away from moves, actively. B-Fab is mediocre as is. This was really about the post-match brawl. And I gotta say, I just came out of it completely unaffected. The pull-apart trope is immensely overused in WWE, and this one paled in comparison to those that we usually see. We just saw Seth Rollins and CM Punk put on one of the best pull-apart brawls that we've seen in WWE in years. Here, it took 15 men to separate 2 women a dozen times. Stratton is angry Flair attacked her a bunch. Okay, cool, and that's the entire reason for a pull-apart brawl. This is a literal boilerplate feud. It's freaking WrestleMania for the women's championship. Some of the shit they said to each other Saturday on Twitter was more storyline development than the feud's gotten on television. I flipped over to good last week because I liked Charlotte's attack. I'm back to bad. The brawls were long, but they were not executed particularly well. The second brawl was better. The Titantron spot was cool. These two need to develop an actual storyline with promos over the next month, period. And someone needs to tell Stratton to develop more of a vocabulary than spanning Tiffy time every 5 minutes she's on screen. Her lack of development reminds me of Rhea Ripley when she got called up to the main roster years ago. It's not that she won't get there. It's just that she's not there yet. And then on top of all of that, why were Flair and Stratton wearing exactly the same gear? Tiffy wears pink. Charlotte should not be wearing pink. I already said it was bad. I'm doubling down. It was bad.
Yeah, I initially thought good because I appreciated the effort in, but as you kind of laid it out, I'm at a bad too. And
I flipped your grade. Love it.
Because it highlights how the pacing of this has made zero sense the entire time. They did like multiple Charlotte stands over Tiffany things. Like, we're not really doing stuff. Charlotte finally wrestles a match on the show. Her first actual match since December 2023. We're a month out of Mania. Yeah, she had ring rust.
Yeah.
Why has she not been wrestling in a month and a half since the Rumble? Like, a cage match doesn't even have her doing things on the house shows.
No,
Like,
she did nothing.
Where is she? Like, why is she not working on this? So then it's like suddenly, boom, Charlotte finally wrestles a match, and then we're doing 6 pull-apart brawls all at once. It's like, hurry, stop. And then we're rushing. We still have a month. Do the pull-apart brawl like 2 weeks from now. Why are we suddenly rushing to a pull-apart brawl now and doing Charlotte wrestling for the first time in years? Like, everything about this is like jumping forward, then not doing anything. It's all over the place.
Pull-apart brawls are for intense hatred, either physically over an extended period of time, like a Braun Strowman and I almost said Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu type of situation, or a CM Punk, Seth Rollins type of situation where there is so much unbridled hate verbally between these guys that they're going to go at each other, and you have a scheduled match the next week, and you don't want them to fight now because you want to preserve them for that match. The WrestleMania match is a month away. There's no storyline between them. Let's not forget, I know I mention it every week, Charlotte came out, the entire onus of her character was, you guys need to prove that you deserve me to challenge you at WrestleMania. So she went to each show. Tiffy proved it by basically beating Nia Jax. Charlotte attacked her. She never put her over as proving it and deserving for Flair to challenge her. She just attacked her a month in a row, and now Stratton is attacking her and they do a pull-apart brawl. It wasn't even a situation where Stratton attacked Flair after the match and stood tall on her own. That way, Tiffy got one up on her, and then next week you actually start the storyline. It was a pull-apart that was mostly 50-50. Technically, Stratton got the last move. This is being terribly booked. I mean, we thought the women's storylines on the road to WrestleMania last year were bad. This is worse than both of them. Luckily, on Raw, that's not the case. But on SmackDown, this is pathetic. Speaking of Raw, Io Sky and Bianca Belair sat down for a contract signing, with Io getting cheers and chants while refusing to be disrespected any longer. Belair actually had a really weak response, and she got booed for it. She said that she wouldn't let Sky get away with putting hands on her from last week. Just as Adam Pearce was praising them for being professional, rather hysterically, Rhea Ripley entered to completely send him off the rails. Ripley said she wouldn't take the slap lying down. They again verbally jawed face-to-face, her and Bianca. Belair shoved Io away again when she tried to get between them, but this time, Rhea took the opening to headbutt Bianca. She kicked Io, and then she powerbombed Sky into Belair on the table that clearly was supposed to break, but it did not. Ripley then signed the contract and ran away with it as Pearce admonished her, and commentary made it clear that her signing didn't exactly mean anything. Pierce later berated Ripley backstage, insisting that signing meant nothing. Belair attacked Ripley. Io went at both of them. Ripley ultimately threw Sky into a door and Belair into a road case, while again demanding to be part of the title match. So there was nothing at all wrong with this, but nevertheless, it was a far cry from last week. Not so much in terms of the quality, but rather the content and the depth. Cody and Cena, they opened this show with a 24-minute segment. You include the opening, it was the first 30 minutes of the show. This got, 7-8 minutes in total? I wasn't necessarily expecting it to be apples to apples time-wise. And yes, last week was great. I just would have liked more here. Even if it was just more of a three-way brawl in the ring or backstage, everything felt rushed. And that was the feeling I got from almost the entire latter 2/3 of this show after the Cena-Cody segment and the opening match of Raw. The biggest disappointment is that Ripley is fully doing this one-note character. They had a chance to truly have her grow as a performer, and they just went right back on it. Instead of taking stock of her situation, accepting blame, explaining why she deserves a title match, she's just being a sore loser. I hope this is WWE putting her on the heel side of the feud, and they continue to build on top of that. But based on crowd response Monday, Belair was by far the least popular of the three. But was this good? Yes, it was good. The direction of Ripley and Belair seeing red, going at each other, ignoring Io, that is working extremely well to build their long-term feud. We're presuming for WrestleMania 42. Pierce not accepting Rhea's signature and basically not repeating the Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 20 story. That was a breath of fresh air. I like the fact that Io is standing up for herself, even if in this segment she was on the wrong side of it. Last segment, she stood tall last week. So as long as she's not, taking the brunt of their aggression every single week, that'll be okay. I still wonder how they're going to make it all work, where ultimately Pierce and Io and Bianca accept. I'm guessing it's Io and Bianca saying, we want her in the match. We want to beat the shit out of her. But at the end of the day, we're going to get the triple threat. I don't want to say that we want, because I don't want to speak for you, but the Silver King wants and that many fans want. It's the three best women in WWE all in the same match. I'm here for it. And this did move it forward. So as I said, it was indeed good.
First, Bianca Belair wearing glasses, and frankly, her whole outfit, gonna give that a hey now.
They look good, but she's got me saying, hey now!
The second, I don't think this actually moved it forward much at all. We knew Bianca Io was already happening, so that's still happening, and Rhea didn't get her way or do anything. So it was just kind of it was a fun segment. I'll give it a good. Ultimately, I enjoyed it, but it didn't really set up anything, because frankly, I don't want Rhea to complain her way into this match.
That's the problem. Yeah.
She needs to earn her way in some form, and maybe they set up a match, or I don't know. Do a Rhea Io rematch, non-title or something. I don't know. But you're right. We went from that Rhea non-televised promo with Kathy Kelly, I think,
that we loved and we praised up and down.
It was great. It was the most introspective she's ever been.
It was Kathy Kelly, but yeah.
Now she's just complaining that Bianca was ringside for her match, which happens all the time. And also Bianca was going to wrestle whoever won. So it was understandable why she was out there. So I don't really understand the Rhea stuff. I'm a little concerned. They've done such a good job and focused so much on making people want Io to be in this match, which they have the last 2 weeks, that the Bianca Rhea part is kind of not getting the proper, booking attention, or just attention to detail, or that it needs to, in order to kind of make this all make sense.
I think that's okay though, because they're just setting the stages. This is not a Bianca and Rhea match where the Io triple threat is happening at Elimination Chamber, then they're going to move into the singles match at WrestleMania. They're building a triple threat. They're showing that Rhea and Bianca are so focused on each other that, okay, yeah, maybe as this transpires and Rhea gets added to the match and they get closer to WrestleMania, it looks like it's a three-way and all of them are equally focused on one another. But in the match, they're basically telling us already, Ripley's going to cost Belair, Belair's going to cost Ripley, and Io Sky is going to walk out as the champion. That is what I am reading into this. And it's also the appropriate booking, because then you have a legitimate feud. One of them wins a title at some point over the next 6 months. And then you set that up for WrestleMania 42. hopefully as a legitimate night 1 main event. Hell, that could be a night 2 main event. If they really did it right, they won't. But if they did, it could be a night 2 main event. It's the biggest women's match that you can possibly have in WWE that you haven't already gotten.
But costing each other the match at this Mania is not going to set up a match a year from now.
Well, no, it's the seeds. It's just starting it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm okay with it. But you're right, it didn't move it forward other than this was the first time that Rhea's like, I want to be in the Mania match. Last week, she was just kind of complaining. But again, her just being a complainer is annoying. And I found it interesting that the crowd booed Belair. They were all in with Io, which is music to my ears. I loved that.
Well, because that's how they set it up. Like she got
but it's great.
disrespected last week, and then Io cuts a basic, hey, I won't let people disrespect me, and people cheer. Like that's Pro Wrestling 101.
Yeah,
basic,
but
easy stuff.
There's a difference between cheering her and booing Bianca. They booed Bianca, which was awesome.
Yeah, well, Bianca was the one who disrespected her, and they still kind of are by focusing on kind of the Rhea stuff. So
yeah, no, completely.
That's why it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. All right, Gunther came out late on SmackDown saying he had to be in Barcelona given he was the greatest European wrestler of all time. Then I think he said he would have preferred to be in a different city. Gunther said he wanted to prove a point that Jey Uso is all flash, no substance. So he brought up A-Kid, the best wrestler out of Spain, to prove that he can demolish their hero. Axiom, who by the way is A-Kid, then came out with his NXT Tag Team title, but without all the aesthetics of his entrance, which was immensely disappointing because that's part of the Axiom package and the music and the slow-mo and the visuals. So they didn't give him that. And by the way, this was like the second of 3 times across these 2 shows where someone had an entrance and it wasn't done the way it's done in the United States. But the other ones were for camera angle reasons. This they didn't seem to care, which was very frustrating to me. So we got Gunther against Axiom, non-title match. Gunther got the mask half off late, only to eat a dragon screw over the middle rope and a missile dropkick. Axiom got a lot of offense, but he took a shotgun dropkick and powerbomb stack for a surprise false finish. He then countered a powerbomb off the ropes into a hurricanrana, hitting Golden Ratio, his finisher. It was called late by Wade Barrett for a false finish. Axiom then countered a chop into Rings of Saturn. Gunther moved out of it into a second powerbomb, adding a massive lariat and a third powerbomb stack to get the win. Then he knocked out Axiom with the sleeper just for good measure. Shout out to Gunther, man. This guy let Axiom get a shit ton of offense on the world heavyweight champion, and he sold his ass off for this guy over like 15 minutes. That had to mean a lot to Axiom, a native Spaniard. It also may have gotten some eyes on NXT. If you liked what that guy saw, you see that weekly on NXT. It also allowed Gunther to look a bit vulnerable, which is important. Gunther is a pro's pro. This was him being a true ring general, no doubt good, 4 stars, A-. I loved every part of this.
This was very good. I didn't catch if you caught it or not, but he said Hala Madrid to the crowd in Barcelona, which is the Real Madrid soccer team.
That's
so that
why.
was some heel heating there. And I got to shout out listener Will Secor, I think your name is pronounced, who noted to me as I was
Longtime listener.
and put in my notes. This was a Raw and NXT superstar wrestling each other on SmackDown. So
fair point.
Not to mention Cody Rhodes on Raw, also SmackDown. Just wanted to continue that thread as it continues. But this was
again,
really
heel champions, no issue, but Axiom fair, Not sorry. Let me say that. I'm sorry. Sorry, I fucked up.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Again, world champions, no issue, but Axiom, totally fair.
But this was a really good match, as you would expect from these guys. Not only did Gunther look vulnerable, and that it was a good match, but he was dominant at the end. He kicks out of the finisher and the multi powerbomb finish. I always like that much more than the sleeper. So it was good to see that. Like he won thoroughly by the end. So this was good.
Gunther wins matches with a lariat, and it's a better finisher than the sleeper. The sleeper's not bad if you want to protect somebody, but every other finishing move that he does, all of which are basic, a regular splash from the top rope, a regular powerbomb, a regular lariat, all of them are better than that sleeper hold. But again, SmackDown on March 28th is going to be in London. Raw a few days later, I'm guessing the 31st, if my math is correct, is also going to be in London. It would be a great opportunity for Nathan Frazier, who's Axiom's partner and for Axiom, to get the exact same style match with Gunther. I don't know that we'll get it, It's a little far off. It's a little too close to WrestleMania probably to go back to it, but it'd be cool.
Well, and they've got plenty of English wrestlers. They don't have any Spanish wrestlers.
Yeah, that's true. Gunther backstage sat next to Jimmy Uso, comparing Axiom to Jay, saying he'd treat him the exact same way and would have no choice but to hurt him. He asked Jimmy, the more mature brother, to help Jay make the right decision. Jimmy instead told Gunther he'd be dropping rank and the title while hyping up his brother for WrestleMania. This is actually a match I want to see, Gunther and Jimmy. That makes sense. Good segment. I hope we get it on SmackDown coming up.
Yeah, and Jimmy's, they've been trying different stuff with Jimmy, and kind of the character himself is still trying to kind of figure himself out, and the fact that he's just not immediately like, I'm on Jay's side, helping him out, I'm going to attack Gunther. Like, they're trying to add some depth by having these segments, and appreciated it. So yeah, it was good.
So we had Jay against Austin Theory on Raw. Jay got a walk and talk promo backstage where he said nothing special. But as he turned toward gorilla position, Gunther got in his face, saying Jimmy was just as stupid as him. They did a quick shoving match, and then he got his entrance. Jay got distracted at the bell, but hit a running crossbody to beat Theory in 30 seconds. Now, it was meant to be a spear. Michael Cole called it a crossbody, and he was actually correct because that's what it looked like, and it was awful. Jay then completely botched a tope con hero, flipping over the top rope and landing spine first on the ring apron. It was literally identical to the Top Dollar botch from 3 years ago. The same botch, the same way he landed. Identical. Gunther attacked, but Jay quickly overcame him and then stripped off the World Heavyweight Championship from his waist. Then he dodged him out of the ring. Here's my question. What in the blue hell was all of this? Why is Theory losing in 30 seconds? Why is he losing to the worst spear known to mankind in 30 seconds? Why is Jay Uso still using a spear as his finisher? This was meant to be a segment that built Jay's legitimacy. For me, it did the opposite. He at least botched the tope, if not the spear, and the sequence with Gunther was rough as hell. Remember last week when I called for Jay to have long matches where he stepped up his game, added to his arsenal, got himself ready for Gunther? This was like a big personal middle finger to that entire idea. It was ugly, just ugly. The worst segment of the entire feud to this point.
This right here is bullshit.
Come on, Oos. It's a joke, right? It's a joke, Oos. You with me?
So first, I think you need to accept that the spear is just there. It's one of Jay's moves now. I feel like every week we're kind of having this discussion.
It's okay to be one of his moves. It shouldn't be his finisher. I mean, it shouldn't be one of his moves, but it would be okay if it was. He's finishing matches with it.
It is. I think you need to accept it, that it's just spear is part of his thing now. So it is what it is.
I'm not going to let it go because it's ridiculous. I just won't. Sorry.
I'm just saying it ain't changing at this point.
Yeah, maybe not.
It's pretty clear. I don't know what was up with Jay this entire thing. Like, he was a mess in this, really. The spear was weird. Not hitting the splash was bizarre from a guy who's done it a million times. And he didn't even get close.
No.
Like, it was a big, top dollar going over the top. That's a very difficult thing for a big guy like that.
Yeah, he's 300 plus pounds. Yeah.
I don't know if someone wasn't looking at the last second and he held up or what, but it was a real mess, real backwards step for the entire thing. Shout out to Adam Pearce, by the way. This came right after the contract ceremony, I think. So he was like in the ring dealing with that and then right backstage immediately dealing with this. So doesn't have control of things, but he's trying. So he's got that. But I'm giving this an ugly as well. It just bizarre from beginning to end.
0.0.
That is one big pile of shit.
I was hoping you would give it an ugly because I wanted to play more sound drops. And if you didn't, I would have to create a reason to do it again. So next week, we're going to get Jay and a mystery partner against A-Town Down Under. This came after an A-Town Down Under promo in the ring, which I asked you before we did the show. It did not air in the United States. For some reason, it wasn't on my broadcast or it got skipped. But why is this happening? Jay beat both of them clean, one of them in 30 seconds. We have now gone 4 weeks with Gunther against Alpha Babes jobbers and Jay against A-Town Down Under. Do we really need another week of this? How is this 10 weeks of hell for Jay? Remember, Chris, how hot the opening night was after the Royal Rumble? Jay got crazy cheers. Gunther drew immense heat. Even though I was okay with Jay winning the Royal Rumble initially, even though I didn't want it, the creative up front, it seemed to be fire. They totally understood what the storyline needed to be. It got me to actually care about something that I didn't actively want. Now, after this, I'm headed in the complete other direction, and I do not believe I'm alone in making that change.
No, it's nonsense. Like, nothing has happened. There's no story. Nothing's happening. It's just he attacks him a bunch. That's it. What is Jay going for other than the title? Where is this ride we're supposed to be on, this journey with Jay?
Right. There's no story.
Has elevated himself up to where you believe he deserves to be the champion because he's all these things he's been through. And it's just nothing. It's the same nothing every week. It's bizarre.
Would you potentially call it, I don't know, missionary position?
I mean, week to week, yeah.
It's the same thing over and over and over. It's like missionary position every single night.
It's so rare that we get to play that. I love that sound drop. As for Jay's partner next week, two options. One, Jimmy Uso connects the Gunther thread from this past week. Another option, a bit out there, but Joe Hendry, Chris. So Raw is going to be in Glasgow. That's where that infamous billboard that featured Hendry appeared like 9 months ago. It's possible.
Oh, yeah. That'll be interesting.
We'll find out.
He did tweet, I think today, say his name and he appears with his picture.
Oh,
so,
did he?
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he probably tweets that like 4 times a week, but
he probably does.
But maybe it was meaningful. We'll find out. We had Randy Orton against Carmelo Hayes on SmackDown. We got to see Randy's wife, Kim, on screen for the first time in a long time outside of like a WWE Hall of Fame or something like that. Orton dapped up a little girl who could not have cared less. So Hayes stared her down upon entering, which is such great heel shit. And for a young guy to be able to do that, chef's kiss. Mello then tried to get Randy to dap up before the bell, only to pull the whole grade school, too slow type of deal. The crowd was rabid for Orton. He countered Mello on a springboard for his snap power slam. Hayes smartly avoided an RKO setup before cutting him over the top rope and then hitting a springboard basement DDT. Orton came back with a superplex. Mello twice countered RKOs with first 48. He landed the second one, but Orton sold it as like being stunned while on his feet. He immediately hit an RKO and got the win. Randy lifted Mello to give him props after the bell, but Hayes shoved him in the face. And then, of course, he ate an RKO. That allowed Kevin Owens to save him from a punt kick coming back. Owens ran Orton into the post, and then he got out of dodge. Everything about this worked. Mello did an outstanding job selling for Randy throughout. It felt like the match operated immensely slow, either for Orton or because they were just trying to draw reactions from the crowd. It lessened the intensity of it, but Orton gave Hayes a lot here by not putting him away easily. It's for that reason I wish he did get his props after the bell, just to put him over, but it made sense in the story for that not to happen. Ultimately, a B-level match. It developed the Owens feud. Didn't take us too far. That needs to happen next week.
Yeah. Randy thinking about punting Mello. I don't know, like face Randy Orton and punts. Is that really a thing? Isn't the punt is usually the heelest move you can do, really? Right?
Yeah, it was him as a heel. It made sense for Owens because he hates him so much.
Yeah.
With Hayes, all he did was disrespect him a little bit. It's like,
Yeah, I was like, we're at punt stage with Mello. That seems like a bit much.
Like he's annoying, but you don't need just hit him with an RKO again, like a third RKO.
But match was good, and ultimately, you get at least Kevin Owens showed up. It wasn't one person involved in a feud is here and the other's not. So I'll give that a good.
So Lamine Yamal of Real Madrid watched this match from the front row behind commentary, and WWE got numerous camera shots of him holding up his phone to like tape moments while like a huge grin on his face. He was wearing a hat. And Chris, I could not help but be reminded of LeBron James holding up his flip phone at Raw. I believe it was in Cleveland back in 2003, which is nearly a quarter century ago for those of you who feel old when I do, like when I say something like that. But it was almost a shot-for-shot facsimile of it. And I know Lamine Yamal is immensely popular, and people think that he may well be the next major football star internationally. Whether he is or not, I don't know. But seeing those kind of back to back, remembering the LeBron shot, seeing Yamal like that, it was pretty crazy. I mean, 22 years later, it was the same situation.
Sure, seemed like that's what they were going for too. I think some WWE or WWE affiliated accounts kind of posted that too. So good try.
You think it was purposeful?
Yes, I think, like you said, shot for shot like LeBron. I do think that was the idea. Yeah.
And like he went along with it being exactly the same, like holding up his phone, smiling, the hat. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Also, by the way, you said he plays for Madrid. He plays for Barcelona.
Oh, Barca. Sorry, my bad.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, listen, my European soccer knowledge is limited to Chelsea, and even that is thinner than it used to be. Yeah.
I don't think a Madrid player going to the show in Barcelona would go over too well.
No, I don't think so either. And yeah, if you're in Spain or if you're a fan of either of those clubs, please lay off the Silver King. Okay. I'm a specialist in American sports, not European sports like football. Drew McIntyre in a promo package explained how Damian Priest benefited every time he got screwed by one of his rivals over the last year. Money in the Bank cash in after CM Punk attacked at WrestleMania. Punk screwing him in the referee shirt during Clash at the Castle. Punk costing him a third time when he actually cashed in his own Money in the Bank briefcase. And then Priest eliminating him from the Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber back to back. McIntyre's goal was to put him down for good. Obviously a fantastic promo from Drew because Drew's a fantastic promo. And he's giving us the hard sell on the feud, which works because, again, Drew is a fantastic promo. Russell Cartwright at RussellCartRW18 wrote in saying he didn't like the angle to start, but because of Drew's promo, he loves it. And that's great if it all of a sudden clicked and completely works for you. For me, the problem has never been a lack of logic or storyline reason for the match happening. That's always existed. It's that Priest has been force-fed to us as this top guy when he's not. And McIntyre deserves something bigger and better to sink his teeth into for WrestleMania. But was this individually good? Absolutely. It just didn't make me more interested in the match.
Well, it did make me more interested in it. I thought McIntyre did a great job for it. There's a through line to all of it, which they put that together really well and laid it out. I still think they should I think we talked last week. I had the idea of they should basically lean into McIntyre feeling that he's above Damian Priest. Like, you don't deserve me at WrestleMania the same way Gunther did to Priest before Gunther took the title off of him. Because we're just not buying Damian Priest as a top guy.
Right.
Which is how they're still kind of trying to set him up.
The problem is, if he does that, Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's very much like in college sports when a team beats a top 5 team, they chant overrated. You're lessening your own victory. So if he does that before the match in a non-title situation, even if he beats Priest, then he diminishes that victory. And if he loses to Priest, he looks even worse. And by the way, there's no way McIntyre should lose this match.
I don't think, whatever way you try to build up Priest, it's not going to make that much of a difference to Drew McIntyre, who has been wrestling CM Punk and the like.
Right.
Really, it's more about getting people behind Priest again because he's just kind of there. So they opted not to go with that. They're leaning into Drew McIntyre is kayfabe pissed at Priest for taking away his opportunities, even though McIntyre on social media is kind of non-kayfabing it and saying that he deserves better. So I don't think those things don't really connect. So I don't know if Drew's going to change his tone online or
has he been saying that on Twitter?
Well, he did that after the Chamber. He said something like another roll up, blah, blah, blah. Like it was very much with the way he got eliminated so quickly, coupled with what came out of the Rumble.
Sure.
It just, he's leaned into that a bit, as opposed to kind of keeping a kayfabe because he gets more reaction.
Right.
People think he's really mad in real life. And so going for a fully kayfabe story doesn't feel right with McIntyre's character, but all right, we'll see where it goes. I like this promo. It was good.
Could have also just been one segment where he's like, look, this is why I actually hate you in the WWE, parlance, parlance situation. And then as it goes, here's why I also hate you in real life, because you're not at my level and you don't deserve to be fighting me at WrestleMania. But maybe the match has to get booked before that's what happens. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So we had Priest against Shinsuke Nakamura. This was set up backstage. Aldis ran down Shin for missing a referee. Nakamura said he just wanted a rematch for the title. Priest was seeking McIntyre. Nakamura talked shit, so they decided to fight. Shin got all the chance. He was caught flying with a flatliner, broken arrow, and half pounced into the announce table. Priest hit the old school crossbody. Nakamura countered him into a triangle. McIntyre distracted for a failed roll-up before Priest countered Nakamura into South of Heaven, with Drew creating a disqualification. Fans chanted for McIntyre, who raked Priest's eyes, allowing Nakamura to land Kinshasa. Then they kind of stared at each other. McIntyre attacked further. He ran steel steps into his head ringside, and again, he got major crowd chants. Drew went to leave, but he turned. He saw Damien in the ring, so he went back in and took his head off with a claymore. Then McIntyre screamed in his face, saying Priest took everything from him all year, and he has nothing left but to make his life hell, before violently stomping him in the back of the head, just for good measure. Not just good measure, good segment. I was getting ready to call him Pinsuke Nakamura, but he didn't lose clean. That was disqualification. So thankfully that didn't happen. The McIntyre attack was relatively violent. I hope the fans consistently chanting for him opened some eyes. Europe or not, it's proof people care about Drew and they don't care about Damien. I'll be livid if McIntyre doesn't win this match at WrestleMania.
I mean, at this point, yes. I think if you tell a good story, you can... Like, McIntyre's not...
He hasn't won a feud in 2 years, dude. I mean...
He, in my eyes, he's not at WrestleMania main event level, but he's right below that.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Where it's no matter what happens to him, he's still legit to me. Because, he can talk you into the next feud and he'll get his wins. And he just looks so imposing. Like Priest doesn't look imposing as much. Also, 11 days ago, Drew McIntyre tweeted about Priest calling him Timu Taker. So
yeah, that's what he is.
That's the level of, it's, I mean, all right, gonna need more. I think you can do a lot more with this, even though nobody really wants it.
Oh, they definitely can, because Drew's good enough to do that.
Right. But I just feel like you got to lean into the idea that nobody wants it. Like, meet it head on. Don't just make it a match.
Yeah, he needs to be like,
I don't know.
He needs to be like, it's because of you that I'm fighting you at WrestleMania. I should be way beyond this. I had every opportunity to be way beyond this, but you are forcing me to be stuck fighting you.
Here's the thing. We didn't like Priest's run as champion. But then as the last couple of weeks of the Gunther feud really turned into something and he was a real underdog, we were talking on this podcast. I kind of feel like Priest should win and retain the title right now. Like they did. So like I think you could do that here where the story is that McIntyre thinks Priest is below him. People get behind Priest enough that you then give him a big win at WrestleMania.
But you're doing that with Jay, though.
Back to a spot.
You're doing that with Jay, though, simultaneously. Like, you got to be careful not to.
Well, I mean, you're supposed to be doing that with Jay, and now you're not. So.
Fair enough.
Yes, you're right, though.
I will note, I just want to say, just because I don't want this match actively, the story beats that we've gotten, and that's why I gave both of these segments good. Drew attacking Damien last week on his way into the arena. Like, they've been doing a really nice job setting this up. It's just that I don't care much about the match. But the booking's been great. I mean, they're actually knocking this one out the park in terms of what they need to be doing to build a legitimate WrestleMania match without a title on the line. Now, I'm glad you mentioned that main event situation with Priest, because a listener named Mac wrote us via email with the subject, who or what qualifies as a main eventer? It was an extremely long email. So Mac, I'm sorry, I'm not going to read all of it, but I appreciate the time and effort that you put in. Here's the long and short of it. He was listening to last week's WWE episode where I called McIntyre a main eventer. I called Priest an upper mid-carder. He wondered, how do you make that distinction? And here's some of his words. He said, quote, I understand Drew has main evented in the past and he's recently been at the top of his game. Plus he's the total package. If you told me it's as simple as Drew could be added to Rollins Punk Reigns and that match would still be in a main event, I understand that. But if he's not in that match, he's at least behind the 4 main title matches, the men's triple threat, and Owens Orton, if not more matches. So how is he a main eventer in that respect? Furthermore, which main events constitute main event status? Only WrestleMania, any PLE? Does LA Knight winning the US Championship on SmackDown in the main event make him a main eventer? Maybe this could all be boiled down to, it's just vibes, and I'd actually be cool with that as an answer. But since you guys are so logical and thoughtful in your takes, I thought this would make for a great topic for the show. I agree, Mac. That's why we're talking about it on the show. And like I said, I love the thoughtfulness of this question. You kind of, though, created the answer within your thought process. As far as I'm concerned, there are 3 categories for men and women at the top level in wrestling. There's A-side main eventers, B-side main eventers, and then upper mid-carders. An A-side main eventer is a man or a woman who you are buying tickets to see lead a card no matter who they're fighting. Cody, Roman, Cena, Rock, Rhea, Becky Lynch, CM Punk. Then you have your B-side main eventers like Orton, Owens, Liv, Io right now, Edge. This is where I would put Drew. He's not going to be your number 1 champion, but he could easily lead a show as champion or be the B-side for a WrestleMania or SummerSlam main event, and you wouldn't even think twice about that being an appropriate position for him. Then you have your upper mid-carders. That's where Priest exists. Same with Jey Uso, LA Knight, Nia Jax. Throw in like Christian Cage as an example. They can be world champion. They can be in a WrestleMania title match, but they would never main event WrestleMania in that spot for one reason or another. That's why some fans were so mad about Jey winning the Royal Rumble. He's an upper mid-carder who's going to be in a WrestleMania title match, but he's not going to be the main event in either night. If he was even a B-side main eventer, he would be. And regarding the technical definition of main eventer, when it comes to WrestleMania or SummerSlam or anything, you got to be in the last match on the card. CM Punk does not have a WrestleMania main event because he's never closed the show. Wrestling in a TV main event or like a Bad Blood main event, it's kind of irrelevant. Though if you're headlining any PLE main event, chances are you're at least an upper mid-carder. So I hope that explanation makes sense. That's how I see it, Chris. Do you agree or do you have a different definition?
I have a similar definition, just a lot less words.
Go for it.
To me, main eventer is they can close a pay-per-view. Are they someone you feel like if you close a pay-per-view with them, people will be into it? I think Drew McIntyre is there. I don't think Priest is right on the edge. Then there's WrestleMania main eventer. Can you see them? Are they big enough to be a WrestleMania main eventer? Drew McIntyre is, to me, is not, even though he did win a WrestleMania main event, but it happened in the PE during COVID and that.
Yeah, but he would have main evented that show if it didn't happen in the.
If he had main evented that WrestleMania and beat Brock Lesnar in front of a bunch of fans, his career would have been a lot different.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, COVID happened the way it is. And, we've seen Drew McIntyre main event pay-per-views, but it doesn't feel like he's at the WrestleMania level. So I just base it purely around pay-per-views. Anybody can kind of.
But let me ask you a question. This year, if for some reason they were able to hold it off, let's just in a make-believe world, okay, and they did CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Hell in a Cell. That's a night 1 main event of WrestleMania. That was a huge match.
Depends what Roman Reigns is doing.
That's the problem. Well, there's 2 nights. That's what. No, there's 2 nights. That's why I was saying it. But yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just saying he was involved and has been involved in feuds where you could conceivably put him in the main event of night 1 of WrestleMania. That's why for me he's a B-side. Could he main event night 2? Whether the challenger or champion? No, probably not. Not the way WWE is situated right now.
Yeah, and I also think there's just simply a limited number of spots.
There are.
Like, it's not like you're not going to have a roster with 8 different guys who you feel like could main event WrestleMania. It's generally going to be like 2 to 4, and those slots are taken up by Cody, Roman, John Cena, CM Punk right now, essentially.
And to what Max said, also, it is in many ways vibes. Like, you just kind of know who's a main eventer and who's not. Yeah, it's pretty simple. All right, so let's keep going. Penta, Ludwig Kaiser, street fight on Raw. WWE tried to get cute with Penta's entrance production, yet they botched it, similar to what they did with 8-Town Down Under last week. Just leave well enough alone. I don't understand this. Penta walked the barricade for a Hurricanrana early. Kaiser poked the eyes and hit a rolling Death Valley driver onto the announce table. He later grabbed the mask, promising Penta would fear him, which would have hit harder if we saw the promos that spoke about him fearing Kaiser on television leading into this match. Penta snapped the arm. Kaiser begged for his life. Penta hit 2 chair-aided super kicks and a flying Mexican destroyer onto a steel chair, plus Penta driver that was supposed to be on the chair but slightly missed it for the win. And it was here I remembered, Chris, that I know how to count 1, 2, 3 in German. Eins, zwei, drei. Entirely due to Cool Runnings.
Push it down some ice.
After the match, Penta said he was focused on the Intercontinental Championship. This was excellent. Ending felt a little bit drawn out. I would have loved for them to get another 5 minutes with more actual wrestling, given it was the feud ender between them. But I wouldn't be surprised if the opening segment went long and they cut a lot of stuff from these matches. Penta was the obvious and correct winner. Going with Penta, Braun Breaker, or some other combination of people that involves both of them, that obviously makes perfect sense for WrestleMania. Penta is definitely believable as someone to beat Breaker without him suffering too much as a character. I don't have much else to say about it, other than the crowd was immense. 4 stars, A-, and good.
Yeah, I don't have much to say other than great match. Crowd was into it, as you would expect. We never did, like you said, get that promo vignette thing we got last week leading into this. Would have been nice on the show to build into it, but still, for this to come right after Cody Cena and like still keep the crowd kind of into it, it's a credit to them. It was definitely good.
That was a huge positive, but also a huge negative because it was the best segment and best match on the show, and nothing could follow them.
Yeah.
Like everything else on the show was worse. Every segment was worse than Cody and Cody and Cena. And every match was worse than Penta and Kaiser. Not worse like they were all bad, but just in comparison, the best stuff that we got was the first 45 minutes of the show. And it's tough when that happens. We had Liv and Raquel. They were talking shit backstage, saying Dominic Mysterio should have taken the Intercontinental title match for himself. Finn Balor walked in with a real legit smile on his face, supporting both of them in their matches before hugging Dom with gratitude for getting him the title match. That immensely positive mood completely soured when Dom again suggested bringing in someone to the Judgment Day, and he singled out Penta. Balor was pissed off because Penta had just moments earlier declared he wanted the Intercontinental Championship, and therefore he called Dom a snake. When Finn left, Dom said he didn't know that Penta said that, and Carlito had a great line. You don't watch the show, do you? These segments are basically automatic goods as far as I'm concerned. Balor finally erasing the sourpuss off his face and being completely positive and supportive, only to immediately turn back when seemingly faced with an obstacle. It was perfect character development for what they're trying to do between these two guys. Penta as a new member obviously makes zero sense in kayfabe or reality, but it at least furthered the angst between the guys here. All of this just worked.
Yeah, it was fine. Good stuff as usual. I think we could add, you don't watch the show, do you? That could be a drop potentially.
It could be. And yeah, I should add that. That's a great call. Yeah. We'll add that to at some point we got to trim this freaking soundboard down, but
we do.
That is a good one. That's like a perfect one for this show. Intercontinental Championship, Breaker defending against Balor. Breaker tried the runaround spear early, only for Balor to counter with Sling Blade. Dom and Carlito ran down also relatively early. Braun murked Finn with the flying clothesline over the announce table. Balor countered a rope run spear with another Sling Blade, hitting shotgun dropkick but missing coup de grace. He leapfrogged a spear before eating a press power slam. Judgment Day distracted so Dom could knock Braun off the top rope. However, as he did that, he simultaneously knocked Finn onto the top turnbuckle. Breaker hit the jump up Frankensteiner and the spear to retain the title. For some reason, Cole went out of his way to credit the Frankensteiner name to Pat McAfee, who certainly did not invent the Frankensteiner name. And let me be clear, Corey Graves was on commentary for this show, and much better than McAfee comparatively, but he was completely silent when Cole said this because what was he going to say? No, that's not true. You could hear a pin drop after that. Dom and Carlito attacked Braun after the bell. Penta saved, handed the title back to Breaker, who raised it over the head before getting a Cerro Miedo. It was a fine main event. I suppose I'll give it a good because it was a quality match, but Balor didn't deserve the title opportunity. We knew he had no chance of winning, and the finish was super paint by numbers. Like, is Finn Dominic actually a WrestleMania feud? Is that what they're booking? And if they're going to do it, can they successfully turn Balor face by doing that? It's tough to care about Breaker right now, given he and the title are never on TV. Inserting Penta into the picture will definitely help. So I'm giving it a good overall, but this Finn Dominic booking, even though it makes total sense, I don't know that it's quality enough for WrestleMania.
Oh, no, absolutely not. There's a lot here that's not going to be at WrestleMania. And I think it's kind of frustrating when you think about, are we going to be doing Finn, Dom, and AJ Logan?
Right.
When it's like, could we just do Finn, AJ?
Right.
Or even Finn, AJ, Logan? Like,
No, Finn and AJ. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously I'd like that, but they want Logan on the show. If you got to make it a triple threat, fine. You got 3 guys who can do some high flying stuff. Like, I don't know, man. Like, we don't need. There's no way Finn Dom is a WrestleMania match. I do not think that will happen.
Yeah, I just
won't be.
don't.
Dom is not big enough. Like this card is loaded like already.
Yeah.
There's not that much room.
Maybe it's go home Raw or Raw after WrestleMania, if anything.
Yeah,
it's weird. LA Knight opened SmackDown, and the Barcelona crowd was absolutely insane for him. Even though he was in the ring for 5 minutes, he said a total of nothing before Jimmy interrupted, saying he was desperate to start his road to WrestleMania and wanted a title match. He called it the United States Tag Team Championship, which was hysterical. Solo Sikoa and crew were out next, saying Jacob Fatu deserved the chance. Solo called Jimmy the loser of the family, so he shot back that Solo dropped the Ulafala. Now, live, when this actually aired, Solo almost dropped an F-bomb. And there was an awesome look between Solo and Jimmy where Solo was laughing it after catching himself, and Jimmy looked at him almost like, hey, little bro, you almost did that shit. Here's the audio of the clip because you did not see it if you live in the United States.
Why don't you do me and all my family a fuck? Oh. Why don't you do us a favor? Step aside since you know to be the fifth.
And that's Jimmy giving him like a side eye, like, oh, you almost did that. Anyway, they cut it out of the American broadcast. No good reason. It was legitimately funny. 3-on-2 attack. Braun Strowman saved. Nick Aldis made the 6-man tag team match playa. Fine in concept, poor in execution, and poor in content as well. So we got the 6-man. Knight was easily the star of the match, the way he was featured. Strowman got the win with a flurry finish, hitting the running power slam on Tama Tonga. He took Samoan Spike after the bell. Knight battled Sikoa into the crowd. Jacob respawned to superkick Jimmy and flattened Braun with 3 jump-up moonsaults. He walked down the ramp. He saw Strowman standing, so Fatu decided to charge all the way back around the ring for a shoulder tackle through the barricade. Both segments were electric. I found the match setup irksome. Like, that segment initially was terrible, but the action was so good. It was like a house show main event, and really my grade is for the post-match because Jacob and Braun remains fun as hell, though it's not lost on me that Jacob leaving and turning back and Drew leaving and turning back happened in the exact same episode. Nevertheless, it was good.
Yeah, this was good. I enjoyed it. I wish they hadn't at the beginning. They like announce LA Knight and then his music hits and he comes out. Like, just play his music. Let people pop to the music, not pop to the announcement. You know, like that was a weird way to start it because then on Raw, they just opened with John Cena's music. They didn't say, ladies and gentlemen, John Cena.
Did they announced LA Knight before his music hit?
Yeah. They were like,
weird.
Ladies and gentlemen, LA Knight. And I was like, what? And then his music hits and people pop and people went nuts for him. But it was like a little thing. I was like, why are you?
Yeah, that's strange.
It was like, usually they announce when it's a promo segment, which is why John Cena eventually got the announcement. Anyway, it was nitpicking, but it annoyed me. This was a lot of fun. Good stuff. Don't totally know where it's going to end up at Mania. Like, is it going to be LA Knight, Jacob, Braun, Solo?
I think it's just going to be Knight and Jacob, I think.
It could be. We're just getting Strowman's getting the pin here, though. We're getting a lot of Braun Strowman for whatever reason. So, I mean, LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think I'm guessing, just pure guess, that the goal is for Strowman to put Jacob over. That way he's legitimized to have a title match. Then you go Knight and Jacob with Solo in his corner, and Solo costs him the title, and then they start feuding afterward. That would just be my guess.
Could be. That would make sense. Yeah.
So Solo and Tama gassed up Jacob backstage. That led Fatu to cut another hype promo at Strowman, promising to dog walk his ass next week. Sikoa physically had to grab his own face because he almost broke laughing hysterically as Jacob started talking. Now, this rematch is happening next week. All 3 guys screamed Fatu at the end, so they seem united. What this and the preceding segment reminded me is that I'm actually really excited for Solo to become a babyface one day. Some dudes are natural heels. Others are natural faces. I actually believe Sikoa might be a face in heel clothing. When you look back at his NXT run, some of the comedic chops he's displayed, like holding up the tickets and waving them around in the crowd a couple months ago, I think if they break him babyface and let him do not like R-Truth comedy, but enough where like people actually get to see that personal side of him, I think he could actually be a star as a face.
I was gonna say, like, we can maybe get into on a future episode, like, what is Solo Sikoa's future here? Because clearly, like, the Jacob push is on. So, like, what happens to Solo? That might be it. You might be right, because I don't think the tribal chief stuff, it never felt
Authentic.
legitimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe a move to being a face could be it, because he's a lot of talent and he's still very young at this.
He's young. He has personality. He's talented. I mean, yeah.
But his entire gimmick has been to not show that personality.
Right.
So
exactly. AJ Styles backstage at Raw allowed the crowd to sing the phenomenal song rather than cut a promo on Logan Paul. Karrion Kross interrupted, saying Styles might not be mad at Paul, but himself, because Logan got to WWE and succeeded immediately, whereas it took 17 years for Styles to do the same. AJ said the tactic wasn't going to work, but Karrion mocked him otherwise. Nice confrontation. Not really enough to grade, but I did enjoy it.
Karrion Kross is doing a great job of pumping up other feuds. Like, he doesn't really have anything going on, but when he shows up, he makes good points. He's interesting, and he's not the focus of the story. So, like, just wanted to, like, shout him out for him and Scarlett doing a really nice job of, like, just kind of progressing things a little bit, or like, hey, if Logan Paul's not here, throw Karrion Kross with AJ Styles. Karrion continues to make it about Logan and not himself, which is what you're supposed to do in that role. So he's doing a good job.
He's a shit star. It's great.
Yeah.
And a puppet master to a degree, but we have to see.
Also, I don't know if we mentioned on this pod, but it's been pointed out that Karrion Kross often is wearing his hair with the people he's talking to.
The same style.
He had it up. Yeah, he had it up in a bun with Xavier Woods. He had it a little bit different with Sammy. Here he's got it long and down on the sides like AJ. It's like a little thing. You know he's doing it on purpose. Good attention to detail from him.
There's a lot that they're developing with him. I just don't know what the payoff is going to be, because with Kross, it's never about the promo. It's never about the character. He's great. It's always about, once he gets in the ring, does anyone actually care? I think they're successfully building him as a character backstage. Hold on. But they haven't actually made us care about his character to this point.
You know what he is? He's Miz. That's what Miz most of the time is doing.
People really like to boo the Miz, though, in the ring. And I think
they do.
With Kross, it's more indifference when he gets in there.
But like, he's not obviously at the Miz's level.
Right.
But the Miz is often like, all right, like, let's throw him in to stir up some shit, but it's nothing more than that.
Right.
That's 90% of what Miz is doing. And that's what Kross is doing right now. And they do it well. It's important.
Yeah, they do it well. You're right. Chelsea Green and her fully formed Secret Harvest had the look going backstage. She was proud of her administration before Zelina Vega came up challenging. Piper Niven stepped up, saying she'd have to go through them first. Something I realized while watching this segment was that as much as I like the Secret Harvest, it effectively eliminates two mid-carders from the roster who should be part of the title picture now that there's mid-card titles. And that is, again, why the likes of Bayley and Naomi should be going after the straps. However, as I thought about it further, if Piper and Alba Fire are allowed to go after the women's tag team titles, well, that rectifies it, because then they're developing an actual tag team. Anyway, light good, only because it wasn't much of anything.
Yeah, it was fine. I'm not on board yet with Alba Fire in the group, just because it's kind of less Chelsea, you know? It's like another mouth to feed, so to speak, who kind of has to take up some camera time. And so they're really even more in front of Chelsea. I'm not like,
but
out
I mean,
on
like,
it
she's kind of like the Carly, she's kind of like the JD McDonough. You know, she's not, JD McDonough didn't take away from Liv.
It's just, it's giving us less Piper Chelsea interaction, which is always gold.
Right.
And so, like, I'm not out on it, and it's fine.
No, you're being clear. You're fine.
But I'm just like, I don't want to get too far away from Piper Chelsea, because that dynamic itself is magic.
It is. No question. WWE Tag Team Championships. DIY defending against the Street Profits. DIY backstage put themselves over for making the championships matter, while pointing out the Profits always choke when going after the titles. Motor City Machine Guns interrupted, reminding the whole division is after them being DIY. Legado del Fantasma later mocked the Profits' hype-up routine, saying they're next for the titles. The Profits did cut a hype promo before the main event, and they looked great in all black. Angelo Dawkins got the hot tag, did the Ronaldo celebration to a nice response. Tommaso Ciampa ate a pounce German suplex, got knees up on Montez Ford's 450. DIY then hit Shatter Machine for a broken fall. Ford came back with some really nice leaping knee strikes. Dawkins pounced Ciampa into the timekeeper's area, but he ate a tope suicida from Johnny Gargano. Dawkins then caught Gargano's slingshot spear perfectly into a swinging neckbreaker. Ciampa interrupted a Doomsday Blockbuster attempt, so Ford eliminated him with a tope con hero, and then they hit the Doomsday Blockbuster for a broken fall. Ciampa caught Montez with a pump knee as he flew over the ropes, and Gargano avoided a Dawkins Swanton Bomb. That allowed DIY to hit Fairy Tale Ending with a super kick for another false finish. Dawkins avoided meat in the middle. Gargano accidentally super kicked Ciampa, and he had a great reaction. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. It was, oh, I can't believe I just did that again. Dawkins caught him with the spinebuster. Ford added the frog splash for the 1, 2, 3 as the Street Profits regained the tag team titles for the first time in 4 years.
But I want you to know this. I prayed for this and it happened.
My first thought was it's crazy how many title changes WWE has done on this road to WrestleMania. At this time, 4 in 19 days. That's wild. My second thought, about effing time. It's been far, far too long since the Profits were champions, and far, far too long since they actually mattered as a team. This gives them the boost they have long needed. As much as I like DIY, their gimmick and their story has lacked. The crowd response was crazy mild, given how over both of them used to be in NXT. With MCMG, they have a story but no characters. The Profits are immensely better in every way as stewards of this division as it continues developing contenders. It does feel like these titles have been hot-potatoed across the division the last few months, but you know what, man? That's in stark contrast to the other titles. And it sells the fact that all of these teams are quality. They're all capable of winning the titles at any given time. The match was also a blast. I thought it was clear the Barcelona crowd was completely exhausted for the main event after a 3-hour show, but they still popped at the very end for the finish. Definite good. 4 stars A-. And lest I not forget, Joe Tessitore was excellent calling the end of this match. One of his best calls so far in WWE.
I have that in my notes as well about Tess, because he says on the call, do we have new champs? Yes. Because we've been so conditioned as WWE fans that when the commentator says, are we about to have new champs? We don't. It always happens when it's Michael Cole. They always say it when it's not going to be the thing. So for him to say, do we have new champs? And then we do, I was like, oh, I was not expecting that. And it added to it. And Joe really leaned into the call. He was great.
Let me put a pin in that.
Nailed the end of that. I'm glad we're on the same page.
Let me put a pin in that.
Montez Ford from the heavens. Do we have new champs? Yes!
That is a pro wrestling commentator call right there.
Awesome. That was fantastic. Really nailed it. Match was great, obviously. And yeah, it needed to happen. The DIY is just kind of, they're just kind of there. They don't really exactly, you haven't really figured out what's clicking with them. But more than anything, I'll say the fact that you have so many, what has helped this tag team division over the last month or two, where they've really picked it up. It's not only that they're just giving time to a lot of teams and having different combinations of wrestling. Everybody wants the belts, and that's so important because over the last 5 years, we've had so long where it's like, well, the Bloodline has the titles and they're just, it's secondary to the story.
3 months later, they defend them. Yeah.
Or Judgment Day has the titles and it's like secondary to the story. No, these are all tag teams who all want the tag team belts and are having tag team feuds and discussions and tag team matches with each other.
By the way, every single team has won a significant match, unfortunately, except Los Garza, but the other 4 have all won major matches.
Yeah. And I don't even want to call that 50-50 booking. It's more just like just resetting the foundation for what a tag team division is supposed to be, because WWE had just gotten so far away from that. Like, if there's a belt, everybody should want it. That's how it should play out. And so they're just getting really back to the basics of booking tag team wrestling, and it's worked. And Profits, I can't believe it's been 4 years since they won the belt. They've been through so many, like, are they going to break up? Are they going to turn heel? You're just like, they're right there. They're so legitimized. Like, I was stunned it'd been 4 years because I'm like, their tag team. We talk about main eventers. They're tag team champion level. Like, we know that.
Oh yeah.
Yet it's been so long, which kind of blew my mind.
But that's because for that entire time you had the Usos holding the titles, and you had Judgment Day, or teams of main eventers or upper mid carders combining to hold the titles. The division was forgotten about, and it was a joke. Here's my question: do you think the titles are going to continue to be hot potatoed? Because Pretty Deadly has a title match, I think, next week against the Profits. Los Garza could possibly take them into WrestleMania. I mean, I could see that being the booking where each of the teams wins the titles at some point in a 2-month span, and they decide who the actual champions are, like who deserves to walk out of WrestleMania as the champions, with like a 5-team ladder match or something like that. It feels to me like that's the direction they're going. I don't know if you can do 2 more title changes, but you could do another one.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it, because like you said, it kind of does then become the story. Especially when every other WWE belt takes forever to change hands. Like, having a hot potato for a bit is not a bad thing.
Yeah, and it develops a reason to do that match as well. Like, just end it. There were 2 video teasers late during SmackDown. The first clearly featured a luchador with a sunburst behind him who's walking the top rope and preparing. And the shot at the end, crouching on the top rope, was awesome. The second had smoke on a black screen with the sound of steps in the background. The number 4 appeared, and then it cut off. The guess is Rey Fenix and Aleister Black, respectively. Rey's was cooler than Aleister's, if so. And if this means that Rey is going to start on the blue brand, I love the idea of separating him from Penta to start. Penta is way too over to get thrown into a tag team right away. Let them each work separately, generate a lot of momentum, let Penta win the Intercontinental Championship, throw them together later down the line, the WWE Draft, the Raw after SummerSlam, whatever the case. If they want to be the Lucha Brothers, and that's why they're joining WWE, cool. Do not waste Penta's momentum right now. As far as Aleister, maybe the 4 stands for 4-4, which would be April 4th. There's a SmackDown that day, Chris, in Chicago. And if you're going to bring Aleister Black back to WWE, doing it in front of a smarky crowd like that would be your best possible move.
I am completely split on this. If you want to do the subtle teases, not subtle, but the vignette teases for Rey Fenix because he's new to WWE audiences, go ahead. You did that with Penta. A lot of your audience doesn't know who they are. That's fine. If we are bringing back Aleister Black, I don't want teases. Make it a surprise out of nowhere. Everybody knows him.
Well,
you don't need to do that.
I agree, but I'm just supposing based on that vignette. There's nothing in there that says Aleister Black.
Okay. I don't want to like.
It just had the number 4. That's all it had.
I hated that we talked for like a month.
I know
about Penta coming. And I understand why WWE would do that, because they don't know necessarily who Penta is. So you got to do it like
the fans don't, right?
But for someone who's already in WWE, if Aleister Black is coming back, which has been rumored, or at least that he's left AEW, I don't want to hear a word. I want it to be a surprise.
Completely agree.
I don't like the month-long build of, here's the thing. Like, I don't make it a moment of like, holy crap, I can't believe he's surprised. We don't get the holy crap moments are what wrestling is all about. So don't give it away.
I don't mind having teasers though, as long as it doesn't give it away. With Penta, it gave it away. I mean, it was clearly a mask. It was clearly his logo, the 0 for Zero Fear. And then it said Penta, I think, at the very end. So they gave that one away. Fenix, you can tell it's him, but they're not totally giving it away. Theoretically, it could be any luchador, like technically. With Black, as long as it doesn't like say Aleister or Malachi, if he goes by that name, or they don't say the word Black, or you don't hear him speak, or anything like that. If they just make it a total teaser situation where you really are not 100% sure, then I'm totally fine with it.
Because like, look, when Cody came back, they never said it was Cody. They never they never actually really hinted. We all just kind of assumed because you read the news, but they never actually was like, well, there's a nightmare coming for you at WrestleMania. Like, they
Right.
didn't do that.
Right.
So that was appreciated. So yes, you could tease something and not say what it is. I just don't want to talk about Aleister
I know.
Black
Just
every
give us a
week on the
surprise.
show.
Please give us a surprise. Yeah.
So yeah, also considering I don't want to talk about it every week, if he is coming back just this one time on this episode that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
I hope he has the old theme. I'm worried
Without
was that
the
a
creaking.
CFO theme.
Without the creaking.
Yes, just the all men are never truly good, evil, like that
Yeah.
whole thing. I've watched his entrances back again. They're
incredible.
awesome, man.
Yeah. So what they did
I hope he has the same
when
thing
Black got
if
called
he
up,
comes back.
when Black got called up from NXT to the main roster, because he's rising basically out of a casket, right?
Yeah.
Vince McMahon or whomever added a creaking sound while he rose.
Yeah.
And it was the worst thing ever because it ruined the darkness, right? The fact that he rose without any sound,
Yeah.
right? The creepiness of the entire thing. So yes, I agree. Has to be the old theme and no creaking sound. If it's a new theme,
And
I might be okay with it, but we still need the same entrance. He still has to rise the same way.
yes, and I hope we don't talk about him on the show until he comes back.
Fingers crossed that we don't have to. If they keep teasing us, we'll keep talking about the teasers, but let's hope it's not anything that blatantly gives it away. A couple more segments here, then we'll get out. Dakota Kai, Ivy Nile in a singles match. American Made were all ringside. Dakota hit her signatures. Ivy did a really cool Uranagi out of a body slam setup. Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee ran down to even the sides. They chased Chad Gable backstage. Kai caught Nile with a running boot and GTK for the win. Not much of a match overall, but this goes to show how a crowd that is actually engaged can level up a segment. This identical booking in an American city would have had fans sitting on their hands and maybe getting up at the end for Dakota winning. I just wish WWE had let this breathe a little bit, both the match itself and the post-match. Dakota could have soaked in some of that adulation and people could have seen that on their screens, but it was still good. Plus, it was a Dakota Kai TV win and she got a pop. Can't want more than that.
This was bizarre. How long was this match?
I don't
2
have it in
minutes?
front of me. I'll look it up, but not long.
Like, and not only that, like we cut to Dakota Kai halfway down the entrance ramp already. Like you got that, and then Gable comes running out, and then Dakota wins, and it's over. I'm giving it a
Wow.
bad, not because of anybody involved, just because they weren't even given a chance.
So you're right, and I actually have to change my grade. I'm thrilled that Dakota won. Everything I said that were positives, I stand by that. This match went 247.
Yeah.
It went under 3 minutes. That's an automatic bad in my book. When it comes to a women's singles match,
Again,
they've been
yeah, that
building the
didn't need to be
storyline. There was a
cut.
backstage
Yeah.
attack. I thought it went longer. I had some commercial break issues where I was a little bit behind when I was watching Raw. I couldn't tell if something got cut in because the commercial ended or, whatever the case. So I just thought this match was longer. I thought it had time during commercial. It didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, very weird.
I don't think I've ever changed a
And
grade live on the show because of something like that before. So that's a first. But you're right. Yeah, that has to be bad.
On a show that was like 2 hours, 20 minutes. Like, why are we rushing?
That's what I'm talking about. It was 2:22. This match was 3 minutes. The Jey Uso Austin Theory match was 30 seconds.
Why?
No match on
I
the
don't
show
know.
was longer than 12 and a half minutes.
I'm not asking for 15 minutes between it, but just like,
No, give me 8 minutes. What do I
5 or
always say?
something.
6 to 8 minutes at a minimum.
yeah.
Really frustrating. Mysterio and Dragon Lee fought Creed brothers. An attempted toss Hurricanrana with Ray didn't go smoothly, but nevertheless got executed. Dragon did a running Hurricanrana off the apron. Ray then hit Julius with a 619 pendulum splash combo for the win. As they celebrated, the American Luchador attacked. And man, he seemed to drop Dragon with a German suplex right onto his skull. Then he did a full release German of Ray into Dragon and hit a diving headbutt. Interestingly, the crowd was totally into the match, but really down on the Gable attack. And as US viewers, we barely got to see any wrestling. It started okay. Yeah. It came back from commercial. The fans were going crazy. And then it just ended like 90 seconds later. So I'm going to call this a light bad. It was far too short. And I just don't care that much about it. Honestly, a big reason why is that American Made is on the mask. If you want to suspend the disbelief a little bit, then have him be an American luchador that doesn't have a logo on it. It looks like him. It's the same size. It's clearly him. And the mask has his logo on it. It would be cool for it to be obvious, but it doesn't need to be ridiculously obvious. Like Mr. America, we all knew it was Hulk Hogan, but he didn't wear a shirt that had Hogan crossed off and then Mr. America written underneath it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we said that last week. Same thing here. I was giving this a bad 2 for the same reason. Another thing that got no time for no reason.
For no reason.
Just weird.
Like you've been building up this feud and you give them, let me check the time here, 5:46, under 6 minutes for this. I don't understand what this show was. I don't understand why it was 2:22. I don't understand why this was short, why JN Theory was short. At least I understand why that was, but it was terrible. And I do not understand why Dakota and Ivy got 3 minutes. That's ridiculous.
The show was Cody Cena, Finn Braun, and everything else got like a little bit of time.
Yeah. It was really crazy. WWE, by the way, has trademarked the name Grande Americano, which you got to presume is for this character. And if so, that is a straight up hysterical name. Though it is Gable getting further away from like being a serious title contender. But if you're going to call an American luchador Grande Americano, I mean, that's going to pop me.
Better than Shorty Grande or something like that.
Grande G. Before we get out of here, we just mentioned a couple times the show went 2:22. I've been complaining for weeks about Lyra Valkyria not getting TV time. I've been saying for weeks how Bayley should have won an Intercontinental title match. Now, she did get an opportunity to contend for one last week and failed. And earlier, I mentioned how it's insane that Lyra is not getting opportunities to actually speak and develop her character. Well, WWE posted on social media after Raw a segment involving, guess who? Lyra and Bayley. And yeah, given the show was 2:22, probably should have been on it. Here's a clip.
Actually, let's do this a bit later. I have to...
Champ, what's up? How are you?
I have to tell you something. I can't stop thinking about the fact that you beat me. And I saw what they did to you last week. So once I go through Raquel and beat her, I have to prove to myself that I can beat you too. So, you want a title shot? You got it.
Okay. I appreciate that, champ. But look, if I were you, I would focus on next week. I mean, you saw what they did to me last week. So focus on Liv and Raquel, and then we'll see what happens, okay? I got my eye on them too. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Good
right.
luck.
Thanks.
Little character development, teasing a future match, Bayley going after what they're trying to make into an important title. This is all I've wanted, and yet it has 32,000 views on social media instead of being put in front of 3 million people on television. I don't get it.
Yeah, I didn't know it existed until you said it. And part of me doesn't even count what happens off of TV as canon, but
yeah,
kind of the world we live in. At least there's something better than nothing. But
yeah, we shouldn't be saying
that. Concern when you added 2 more mid-card women's titles. How much time is there?
Yeah, I mean, credit to SmackDown. They're getting Chelsea on regularly, and even though it was, it's been rematch after rematch with Mi Chen, she's on screen and she's there and they're telling stories. Also, that show is 3 hours. Last time I promised. This show was 2:22. They had every opportunity in the world to make it a 2 hour and 40-minute show and actually develop further storylines for WrestleMania. So, all right. I promise I won't have to say that again unless next week's show goes like 2:12, and then we'll have
this episode of the pod might be longer than Raw was.
It is longer than Raw was. And that's a problem. Straight up. Not for us, because we love doing the show. Raw should not have been that short. All right. I'm off that topic, I promise. Next week we won't have to mention it, but we will wrap up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, and we also will hold off any last word questions and comments because this show went longer than expected. So in terms of our schedule, we're going to be back on Thursday talking all things NXT and AEW. Next week, same bat time, same bat channel. On Tuesday, we'll have your WWE episode. Appreciate all of you listening to this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Full audio episodes, also video clips from past interviews, and full brand new video interviews in 2025. Follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky. Episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can send in questions and comments for the show. And as you heard on this episode, we do our best to read them on the air. Don't forget, here at Getting Over,
it's all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating. On Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And lastly,
I happen to love the number 5.
Hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Over head. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, exclusive news analysis every week. Buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. For Vintage Chris Vanini, this is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.